I was born into the Gu family, one of the 5 ancient Eternal Earth clans. I was the sole heir to the main bloodline. Most people would wonder what it feels like to be born at the absolute peak of existence, but I was busy thinking about something else. Inside my mother's womb, I curled my small, fully formed body and let out a tiny sigh. I only had about 15 minutes left before I entered the world. For months, I had listened to my father, Gu Qingyun, whispering against my mother's belly. He talked about how our family ruled over 3,000 Dao domains and how the other 4 Earth clans were nothing more than background characters. He had already named me Gu Changsheng, convinced I would become the strongest immortal in history. He spoke about these world-shaking facts as if he were reading a grocery list. To him, my greatness was just a basic requirement. But listening to him made my blood boil with excitement. My father was the clan leader, and my mother was a saintess from another Earth clan. With a background like this, I didn't think I needed anything else. I squeezed my tiny fists. Even without a cheat code or a system, I could probably walk sideways through this world and no one would dare touch me. In my past life, protagonists fought to the death for a single Earth-grade manual or an ancient pill. Me? I'd be born into the ancestral grounds with a bloodline inheritance and enough cultivation resources to bathe in. I decided right then that I didn't even want a system. Then, a cold, mechanical voice exploded in my mind. Ding! Your system has arrived. I froze. It actually showed up? I didn't need this. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Heaven's Path system. My brow twitched. This wasn't just any system. Heaven's Path carried a weight that suggested something much higher than the usual trash. It represented the peak of the world itself. I asked it what it actually did. Golden words floated in my consciousness. The host holds the full authority of Heaven's Path. I took a sharp breath. That sounded terrifyingly powerful. But before I could celebrate, the system continued. It explained that the world was currently in a golden age where children of destiny were popping up everywhere. These chosen ones were draining the world's essence, causing the source of Heaven's Path to collapse. If it's empty, why give it to me? I grumbled. The system explained that since the luck of these children of destiny came from heaven, I could use my authority to manipulate their life choices. By changing their paths, I could force their luck to flow back to heaven. In return, I would receive a reward based on what the child of destiny lost, multiplied by 10,000 to 100 million times. My eyes lit up. I could control the so-called protagonists. I'd heard stories about these guys, born for greatness, defying the heavens, growing into peerless experts. Now, I could puppet them for massive rewards. This was perfect. Ding. Detected child of destiny number 1 in the Eastern Profound Realm. Xiaochun. Life event triggered. I was shocked. I hadn't even been born yet, but the system was already working. Well, I was bored in here anyway. I looked at the prompt. Event name, Xiaochun's broken engagement. Location, Xiao family main hall. Summary, Xiaochun was a genius who became a loser 5 years ago. Today his fiancée, Lu Ruyan, has come to break the engagement and humiliate him, which will trigger his hidden potential and awaken his ancient flame body. I almost cursed it out loud. This was the most classic, overused plot in history. The loser, the breakup, the humiliation, and then the sudden power-up to slap everyone's faces. It was so cliché it hurt. A screen appeared before my eyes. In a grand hall, a young man stood with a pale, frustrated face. Opposite him was a beautiful woman with flowing black hair and skin like snow. This was Lu Ruyan. Xiaochun, you are a waste now. You aren't worthy of me, she said coldly. She pulled out the engagement contract. This is over. As compensation, I brought this cauldron from my sect. It's a low-grade spirit tool, but for someone like you, it's a treasure. She tossed the cauldron onto the floor at his feet. It was a blatant insult. I could feel the tension through the screen, but I also wanted to laugh at how predictable it was. Ding. Life choice triggered for Xiaochun. 4 options popped up in front of me. A. Get angry, tear up the contract, and shout, 30 years east, 30 years west. Don't look down on a poor youth. B. Stay silent and accept the humiliation because her sect is too powerful. C. Accept the breakup, take the cauldron, and politely thank her. D. ignore Lu Rian entirely, and propose to her elderly male protector standing behind her. I stared at the screen. If I picked one, would Xiao Chen actually do it? The system confirmed he would. I grinned and tapped option D. Back in the hall, Xiao Chen's face was dark. He stepped forward. His father tried to stop him, telling him not to be impulsive. Xiao Chen just nodded and kept walking. But he didn't look at Lu Rian. He didn't even acknowledge the cauldron on the floor. Instead, he stopped in front of the elderly protector, a powerful Saint Realm elder, and began scanning him up and down. The elder frowned, clearly annoyed by the boy's gaze. "Why are you looking at me?" Xiao Chen cupped his hands and bowed deeply. "Senior, I can accept the saintess breaking the engagement. However, I have a request." "What is it?" the elder asked, his brow furrowed. Xiao Chen cleared his throat and spoke loudly enough for the whole hall to hear. "Senior, I see that you have a noble aura and a grand presence. Since the engagement with Lu Rian is off, I would like to ask if you would become my Dao companion instead." The entire hall fell into a deathly silence. At that exact moment, a system notification chimed in my ear. Ding! Detected that the Destiny Child, Xiao Chen's life path has deviated significantly. The awakening of the Yanhuang body has failed. Xiao Chen has lost his special physique, returning his luck to the heavens. Current heavens luck saturation, 0.03%. Congratulations, host. You have triggered a critical hit reward, returning the favor 100 million times over. You have obtained the supreme immortal grade fire attribute, the heaven-burning immortal body. Do you wish to merge now? I didn't hesitate. I chose yes. Outside, in the 3,000 Dao provinces, within the eternal Dao realm, the Gu family estate was packed. The clan leader, Gu Qingyun, paced back and forth outside the delivery room. His powerful aura swept across the land like a storm. Suddenly, a loud, clear cry rang out, echoing through the entire estate. I was born. The moment I left my mother's womb, the world changed. The sky above the eternal Dao realm had been clear for thousands of miles, but it was suddenly torn open by a streak of golden light. It burst from the void like the very first ray of dawn at the creation of the world. It was brilliant but not blinding, warm but not scorching. Then, the temperature began to skyrocket. The 1,000-year-old ice surrounding the Gu family estate collapsed instantly, turning into a rushing torrent. And that was just the beginning. The golden light started to burn. The entire sky was on fire. It wasn't normal fire. It was golden divine flames. They stretched from the eastern horizon all the way to the west. Everywhere I looked, there was gold. The clouds were burned away, revealing the starry sky above, and even the stars seemed to catch fire. Deep within those golden flames, massive shadows appeared. A three-legged golden crow shrieked and spread its wings. A true phoenix of the 9 heavens underwent nirvana in the fire. An ancient fire dragon coiled and roared, and fire giants stepped across the firmament. They soared through the golden sea of fire, as if they had stepped out of the primordial past to look down upon the earth. Golden rain fell from the sky, coating every corner of the Gu estate. The roofs turned gold. The stone steps turned gold. Every tree and flower was plated in golden light. The entire Gu family was bathed in divine fire. An immortal body had descended. In an instant, every member of the Gu family was shaken. Boom, boom. Terrifying auras shot into the sky from all directions. Saint Realm experts tore through space, appearing in midair. 10, 100, 300. Over 300 Saint Realm experts hovered in the sky like a dark cloud. They stared up at the burning heavens, their faces filled with horror. What kind of vision is this? One muttered. I've lived for 80,000 years, and I've never seen anything like it. Before he could finish, even more powerful auras erupted from the depths of the Gu family's ancestral lands. These were thousands of times stronger than the saints. Dozens of figures appeared. At their head was an old man in a gold-trimmed robe. His face was withered like rotting wood, but his eyes burst with terrifying golden light. His name was Gu Wangu, the second-generation ancestor of the Gu family. He had existed for an entire era. Right now, this peak-level great emperor's hands were trembling. The heaven-burning, immortal body, he whispered. His voice was raspy, yet it made the world shake. It's the heaven-burning, immortal body. The entire area fell into a deathly silence. An immortal body was a rank above even god bodies or saint bodies. In all of the Gu family's recorded history, an immortal body had only appeared 3 times. Every single time, it meant the birth of a great emperor who would sweep through the ages. This child is of Qingyun's bloodline. Gu Wanggu turned sharply toward the delivery room, his eyes flashing. Inside the room, Gu Qingyun's hands shook as he held the newborn baby. My skin was as white as jade, with golden patterns flowing beneath the surface. My bones were transparent like crystal, emitting a soft glow. Between my eyebrows, a faint golden flame mark flickered. Most shocking of all, my eyes were wide open. My golden pupils were as deep as the starry sky, looking as if they could see through the long river of time. I looked at my stunned, cheap father and let the corners of my mouth curl up slightly. The system voice rang in my head again. Ding! The heaven-burning immortal body has finished merging. The doors to the room slowly opened. Gu Qingyun carried me out. Outside, the scene was overwhelming. 300 saints hovered in the air, and dozens of ancestors with auras as deep as the ocean stood waiting. Every single eye was fixed on me. I lay peacefully in my father's arms, eyes closed, my tiny fists clenched. But in the next moment, everyone felt it. The spiritual energy of the world began to surge violently. From every corner of the eternal Tao realm, energy rushed toward me. It was like a tide. My tiny body was a bottomless pit, greedily devouring everything. The energy poured into my skin, my bones, and the flame mark on my forehead. The immortal body was tempering itself automatically. A weak but incredibly pure pulse of energy radiated from my body. This is the dust-clearing realm. A saint realm elder widened his eyes. He was just born, and he's already entered the dust-clearing realm? He doesn't even need a cultivation technique. Before he could finish, another pulse hit. Dust-clearing realm, 2nd stage. Then 3rd, 4th, 5th. In the blink of an eye, I had broken through 5 minor stages. But everyone was waiting for the breaking point. Boom. An aura far grander than before exploded from me. I reached the peak of the dust-clearing realm and smashed through the barrier. One step into the spirit rotation realm, Gu Wanggu murmured. For the first time, his stoic face showed genuine emotion. It didn't stop. 1st stage, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, until I reached the 5th stage of the spirit rotation realm. Only then did the breakthrough slow down. The silence was absolute. A baby who hadn't even been alive for 15 minutes was already at the 5th stage of the spirit rotation realm. A normal cultivator would start at age 5 and take at least 3 years to reach this level. But that wasn't even the scariest part. Look, one of the ancestors shouted, his voice trembling. The spiritual energy was still pouring into my body. Even though my cultivation level stopped rising, the energy was being stored. It was nourishing my immortal bones and tempering my physique. My body was devouring energy as a reflex, as natural as breathing. Even without practicing or meditating, my strength would grow every second. Gu Wanggu slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were clear and sharp. This child, he paused, his voice echoing across the estate, will surely become a great emperor. I blinked my clear eyes. I wasn't looking at the ancestors. I was looking at the screen only I could see, focusing back on Xiao Chun. The life choices weren't over yet. In the vision, Xiao Chun had just asked Lu Rian's elderly protector to be his Tao companion. The protector was furious. He was a Saint Realm elder. How could he tolerate a brat disrespecting him like this? I'm serious, senior, Xiao Chun said, looking sincere. He even took 2 steps forward. If you don't believe me, I can swear an oath to the heavens. Enough, the protector roared. The sound was like a thunderclap, making the entire hall shake. You little beast, you're looking for death. His hair stood on end, and killing intent burst from his eyes. He raised a hand and swung. A massive red palm print materialized in the air, slamming down toward Xiao Chen's head. He wasn't holding back. He intended to crush this ant who dared to humiliate him. The elder wanted to erase Xiao Chun from existence. He wanted the entire Xiao family to pay the price for the boy's words. Chinner, Xiao Lingtian screamed, his eyes bloodshot. He tried to rush forward, but the suffocating pressure of a Saint Realm expert pinned him to the spot. He couldn't move a muscle. Xiaoqun stood frozen, his face as white as paper. He didn't hide, and honestly, he couldn't. How could a failed cultivator with retreating strength block a lethal strike from a saint? The red palm print loomed closer, growing larger by the millisecond. Then, at the very last second, a soft hum echoed through the hall. A faint light flickered from the ancient jade pendant hanging around Xiaoqun's neck. It was so dim it was almost invisible. But the moment it lit up, the space behind Xiaoqun tore open like wet paper. A pitch-black rift appeared, a void passage leading to another world. The protector's eyes widened. His palm struck nothing but air. Xiaoqun had been sucked into the rift, vanishing without a trace. The crack snapped shut, and the hall fell silent again. It was as if nothing had happened, leaving behind a crowd of stunned witnesses and one very furious elder. A treasure that can tear through world barriers. The protector muttered. Greed flashed in his eyes. That's at least a saint-grade spatial artifact. He whipped his head toward Xiao Lingtian. Your family. You've been hiding things quite well, haven't you? Xiao Lingtian was just as confused. He had picked that jade up years ago and tossed it to his son as a trinket. He had no idea it was a legendary treasure. Back at the Gu estate, I lay in my soft crib, my golden pupils flickering. I watched the scene unfold and couldn't help but smirk. Traveling between worlds already? I had to hand it to him. I wondered if there was an old grandpa spirit living inside that jade too. The system notification chimed in my head. Xiaoqun had used the void token to teleport to a lower realm called the Zongyun realm. The vision shifted. I saw a vast mountain range. A streak of light fell from the sky like a meteorite, crashing into a dense forest. Branches snapped and shattered until Xiaoqun hit the ground hard, leaving a human-shaped crater in the dirt. He crawled out, covered in dust, and looking like a total mess. I'm not dead. He checked his limbs, sighing in relief when he found everything attached. But the silence didn't last. He heard the roar of battle nearby. He crept forward and saw a massive fire lion, 30 feet tall, locked in a brutal fight with a woman in white. The lion was draped in crimson flames, each swipe of its claws threatening to melt the forest. The woman fought back with a green longsword, her blade light falling like freezing rain. Both were badly hurt. The lion had a deep gash on its back, leaking blood, while the woman's left arm was charred black. Human, don't push your luck, the lion roared in a human voice. I told you, the woman said, her voice like ice. I only want a drop of your essence blood. I, Yi Qingli, swear to the heavens that I will compensate you with treasures of equal value in a few days. The lion scoffed. You humans are the worst. Your words are worth nothing. You won't get a drop of blood, let alone a single hair. The beast's flaming eyes roamed over her. Actually, you're quite pretty for a human. Why don't you stay and birth me a litter of cubs instead? You're asking for death. Yi Qingli screamed. Her sword exploded with green light. The lion roared, its flames surging to the sky. They both unleashed their strongest attacks at once. The collision was deafening. Light and fire blinded the screen. When it cleared, both were on the ground. The lion's flames were nearly extinguished, and Yi Qingli had crashed into the dirt, coughing up a mouthful of blood. Neither could move. It was a total stalemate. That's when Xiaoqun stepped out from the bushes, looking confused. 3 pairs of eyes met. The air turned awkward. Yi Qingli spoke first, her voice weak but urgent. Boy, help me kill this beast. If you do, I will take you as my personal disciple. I am a Lingtai realm cultivator. You won't regret it. The lion chimed in immediately. Don't listen to her lies. Kill her, and I, Yin Tian, will become your spirit pet. We can sign the contract right now. Think about it, a Lingtai beast as a servant. People would kill for this chance. Xiaoqun stood there, stunned. He didn't know what to do. In my crib, I took a mental deep breath. Is this what it's like to be the main character? You fall out of the sky and land right in front of 2 powerful experts who are both paralyzed and begging for your help? One wants to be your master, the other wants to be your pet. The luck was honestly disgusting. Then, the system popped up again. Xiaoqun had triggered another life choice. A translucent panel appeared before me with 4 golden options. A. Help Yi Qingli, kill the lion, and become her disciple. B. help the lion, kill the woman, and take the beast as a pet. C. Find a way to take both. D. Help neither. Tell them you're just passing through and walk away. I looked at the options and smiled. Option D was perfect. If Xiao Chun walked away from such a massive opportunity, his destiny would take a hit, and I would get the rewards. Xiao Chun stood in the forest, thinking hard. He realized that if he helped one, the other might still have enough strength to kill him. He was only at the Juechen realm. To him, both of these beings were dangerous monsters. He didn't want to jump from the tiger's den into the wolf's mouth. Xiao Chun stood there for a second, frozen. He looked at the woman, then the lion, and then at the terrifying power radiating from both of them. He wasn't stupid. What if helping one triggered a backlash from the other that killed him instantly? He was only in the Juechen realm. To him, these two were nuclear bombs waiting to go off. He didn't want to jump out of the frying pan and into the fire. So, he did the only sensible thing. He turned around and bolted. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him, disappearing into the woods without looking back. Yi Qingli and Yin Tian were absolutely stunned. They stared at the spot where he had been standing, completely dumbfounded. Someone had actually walked away from a god-tier opportunity like it was nothing. Inside my crib, a notification pinged in my mind. Asterisk ding. Detected that the child of destiny, Xiao Chun, is feeling dejected. His destiny path has deviated significantly. Asterisk. He has lost the opportunity to become Yi Qingli's disciple and the chance to contract Yin Tian. Asterisk returning a portion of luck to the heavenly Tao. Current luck saturation, 0.07%. Asterisk. Asterisk congratulations, host. You have triggered a critical return. Asterisk. Billions-fold reward incoming. The rewards started rolling in, and they were insane. Instead of a Lingtai realm master, I got the service of the Yaoguang Empress. Instead of a Lingtai beast contract, I received the absolute submission of the ancient golden crow. Thousands of miles away, in a place where no light ever reached, a golden divine bird was curled up in the eternal darkness. Her wings were tucked in like a sleeping sun. This was the ancient golden crow. She hadn't moved for tens of thousands of years, but suddenly, those massive golden eyes snapped open. The void shattered. Endless golden flames erupted, sweeping across 100,000 miles. The master has descended. A low, booming voice echoed through the darkness. She lifted her golden head, her gaze piercing through the void, locking onto the eternal Tao territory and the heavenly visions swirling above the Gu clan estate. The burning heaven saint body, it really is you. Her voice trembled. With a sharp tear, she ripped through space and vanished. Meanwhile, on the highest snowy peak of the Yaoguang sacred ground, a woman in white sat cross-legged. A trickle of blood leaked from the corner of her mouth. She sighed, her cold eyes flickering with disappointment. She had failed again. Her master once told her she had a tribulation in her fate, a barrier she couldn't cross. She had tried to calculate its location for 1,000 years, but it was always hidden. Suddenly, her eyes erupted with golden light. The veil that had hidden her fate for a millennium cracked open. She turned her head, looking across the vast distance. She saw the burning heaven saint body, the gathering of heavenly luck and her own destiny. It's there, the Yaoguang Empress whispered, her voice tinged with genuine shock. She stepped forward, her white robes fluttering as she tore through the sky. Back at the Gu family mansion, the vision had just started to settle. Gu Wangu and the other ancestors were still reeling from the birth of a saint body. My father, Gu Qingyun, was holding me, his face full of pride. From their perspective, I was just a tiny baby reaching out and waving my hand at the air. But with that one little movement, the sky split open. A golden crack 10,000 miles long appeared, and endless divine flames poured out. The temperature in the entire eternal Tao territory skyrocketed. 300 Saint Realm experts from the Gu clan looked up, their expressions shifting. Dozens of Earth Realm auras exploded into the air as the ancestors took flight. A massive golden shadow emerged from the crack, its wings spanning 10,000 feet. The ancient golden crow? Gu Wangu narrowed his eyes. The other ancestors were just as surprised. Why was this old bird showing up now? Gu Wangu stepped forward, his peak great emperor aura clashing against the golden flames. "Ancient golden crow," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "Why have you come to the Gu clan?" He wasn't afraid. If it came to a fight, the bird wouldn't win against the Gu family. The golden crow folded her wings, her massive body hovering in midair. She looked down at Gu Wangu, her voice deep and solemn. "I have come to submit to my master." "Submit?" Gu Wangu frowned. The golden crow's gaze moved past him, landing directly on the tiny baby in Gu Qingyun's arms. "This child possesses the burning heaven saint body. He is my destined master," she declared. "I have crossed the void only to serve him." As she spoke, she descended slowly, pulling in her flames so she wouldn't singe a single blade of grass. The proud, ancient creature lowered her head toward my crib. "Master, I have come to serve." The entire area went silent. Gu Wangu looked at me, his old eyes flashing. A saint body so powerful that even the ancient golden crow came to bow. Before anyone could process that, the sky ripped open again. A chilling, pure aura flooded the area as a woman in white stepped out of the rift. The Tao itself seemed to hum around her. "The Yaoguang Empress," someone whispered. She was one of the youngest emperors in the 3,000 Tao territories. Gu Wangu gave a slight nod. "Empress Yaoguang." Even though she was an empress, she was still junior to the Gu family, but Gu Wangu kept his manners. "Senior Gu," she said, bowing slightly. "I apologize for the intrusion. I have a request." "Speak," Gu Wangu replied. Her eyes drifted to me, a complex look crossing her face. "I have cultivated for 1,000 years, but have reached a standstill. My master said I have a tribulation I must pass, or I will be stuck forever. I couldn't find it, until today." She pointed toward me. "My destiny is tied to this child." Gu Wangu's brow twitched, and she took a deep breath, looking at the gathered power of the Gu clan. Then, she lowered her head. "I wish to enter the Gu clan as a maidservant to this child. I will serve him to overcome my tribulation. I ask for the Gu clan's permission." "A maidservant?" An empress wanted to be a baby's maid? Gu Wangu didn't answer immediately. He looked at the other ancestors, their minds communicating in silence. Finally, he looked back at her. "Empress Yaoguang, we don't usually turn people away, but this is too convenient. This child is the future of the Gu clan. You are an outsider. How do we know what you're really planning?" The other ancestors nodded. Who would believe a random empress showing up to be a nanny? Yaoguang didn't flinch. She had expected this. "I understand your concerns," she said. She raised her hand, and a sliver of pure spiritual energy formed a golden talisman in her palm. "A heavenly Tao contract," the crowd gasped. "I, Yaoguang, swear by the heavenly Tao," she said clearly. "From this day forward, I will serve this Gu clan disciple and never harm him. If I break this oath, may the Tao destroy me, body and soul." The golden talisman shot into the clouds, followed by a roar of thunder. The contract was sealed. The silence was deafening. Gu Wangu looked at the sky, genuinely shocked. A heavenly Tao contract wasn't a joke, especially for an emperor. If she betrayed it, she was dead. "Do you believe me now?" she asked. Gu Wangu was about to speak when the space near them tore open one more time. A handsome man in green robes stepped out, his aura radiating authority. It was my father, Gu Qingyun. He looked at the empress and smiled. "Yaoguang, it's been a long time." My father, Gu Qingyun, stepped forward and looked at Empress Yaoguang. His expression was calm, but I could see a hint of nostalgia in his eyes. Yaoguang froze for a moment. She looked at the man in the green robes, her cold eyes flickering with complicated emotions. Years ago, they had crossed paths. They had fought for 3 days and 3 nights in a ruin within the 3,000 Tao realms, ending in a complete stalemate. I don't think she ever expected to meet him again like this. Him, a married man with a child, and her, offering to be that child's maid. "I didn't think you would actually come," my father said with a faint smile. He looked down at me. I just blinked my golden eyes, staring at everything with pure curiosity. "So you want to be my son's maid?" "Yes," Yaoguang replied, nodding firmly. My father fell silent for a moment. "You've already sworn a heavenly Tao contract, so you are certainly qualified." However, he paused, his tone shifting. "My son might not agree. Besides, he was just born. He's too small to decide." The moment those words left his mouth, I started moving. I kicked my little legs and waved my tiny fists, squirming around in my father's arms. My golden eyes were locked onto Empress Yaoguang. I blinked at her, my heart racing with excitement. The crowd gasped. A Saint Realm elder stared at me, his eyes wide. Does this child understand us? His intelligence, even for a Finchen immortal body, this is extraordinary. Of course I understood. I was a traverser. I had read enough web novels to know a good deal when I saw one. This woman before me had skin like cream and hair like a waterfall. She was more beautiful than any celebrity from my past life. More importantly, she was a system reward. The system's billion-fold return guaranteed her loyalty. An emperor-level powerhouse as a maid. And a beautiful fairy at that? Only an idiot would say no. I reached my tiny hands toward her, making aha sounds. I wanted her to hold me. A rare smile finally broke across Yaoguang's cold face. It was like ice melting in the spring sun, absolutely breathtaking. It seems he likes me, she whispered, her eyes softening. My father frowned. The contract was sealed, so she couldn't hurt me, and I clearly wanted to go to her. He sighed and handed me over. Be careful with him. Yaoguang took me into her arms. She was so gentle, as if she were holding a priceless treasure. I sank into a warm embrace, and a fresh, subtle scent hit my nose. It wasn't heavy perfume, it was light and cold, like a lonely orchid on a snowy mountain. It smells so good, I thought. I tilted my head and buried my face straight into her chest. It was soft, warm, and fragrant. A look of pure satisfaction spread across my tiny face. So soft, so nice. This empress is incredible, I screamed internally. It's a shame I'm just a baby. I can't do anything yet. I need to grow up fast. I wiggled around, finding the perfect, comfortable spot. Yaoguang looked down at me, feeling my little head nuzzling against her. Her pale face flushed a faint shade of red, but it vanished quickly. She gently patted my back, her voice turning incredibly soft. Little guy, from now on, I will stay by your side. I let out another ah in response. The elders exchanged looks, completely stunned. That was it. It was settled? Gu Wangu watched us for a long time before finally shaking his head. Fine. Having an empress as the young master's maid, there's no downside to that. My father stood there watching me nuzzle into Yaoguang's chest. His lip twitched. I think he was wondering who I took after. Meanwhile, the taiga golden crow was feeling very awkward. It had shrunk its massive 10,000-foot body, hiding its golden flames, and was squatting in midair. But nobody was looking at it. Everyone was obsessed with the empress and the baby. The crow blinked its golden eyes. It was a great emperor-level demon beast, an ancient creature that had lived for countless millennia, yet it felt like a forgotten guest at a party. It watched me, its chosen master, snuggling with a human woman, and it felt jealous. What was so good about her? She just had a pretty face. Could she breathe fire? Could she burn through the 9 heavens? Could she carry me through the void? Ahem! The golden crow coughed loudly to get attention. Nobody looked. Ahem! Ahem! Still nothing. The crow decided it couldn't wait any longer. Buzz! A flash of golden light erupted, and its massive body shrank instantly. In the blink of an eye, the sky-blotting giant bird became a tiny, round golden bird about the size of a human head. Its feathers looked like polished gold, shimmering with light. It looked like a little golden ball as it flapped its wings toward me. Wait! Gu Wangu reached out a withered hand, blocking its path. Please return, Excellency. I don't know why you call my descendant master, but he is far too young. The golden crow didn't even let him finish. By the heavenly Tao, I, the Taigu golden crow, recognize this child as my master. I shall never betray him. If I break this oath, may heaven and earth destroy me. It said the whole thing in one breath. Gu Wangu froze. The 300 saints and dozens of elders all felt their faces twitch. What was happening today? First the empress, now this? And the bird was even more direct than she was. It didn't even give them a chance to argue before swearing the oath. Gu Wangu lowered his hand, his expression shifting from shock to helplessness. Fine, he muttered to himself. This must be the destiny of our clan. To have 2 great emperor-level beings surrender the moment he is born. The Gu clan will flourish forever. I didn't care about the clan's future. I was too busy enjoying the Empress's embrace. Just then, a streak of gold landed next to me. The tiny, round golden crow squatted on the edge of my swaddling clothes, looking at me with pathetic, pleading eyes. I blinked at it. This was the second reward from the system. The little bird chirped softly, a tiny, sweet sound that had none of the terror of a great emperor beast. I laughed and reached out my tiny hand. The golden crow looked honored and immediately lowered its head, letting me grab a single golden feather on its crown. If the other demon tribes saw this, they would think they were dreaming. A supreme taiga golden crow was being treated like a pet parrot. Empress Yawang suddenly spoke up, her gaze fixed on Gu Qingyun. She asked what name had been chosen for the child. Gu Qingyun watched me squirming and grabbing at the Empress's robes from within her embrace. He took a deep breath, his expression calm. He decided my name would be Changshen. From that day on, I was known as Gu Changshen. 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. The news of my birth had been like a pebble tossed into a still lake, but the ripples had spread across the entire 3,000 Dao realms. The words, Finshin immortal body, were enough to give every major power sleepless nights, especially since I was born into the ancient long-life Gu clan. The Gu family didn't bother hiding the truth. In fact, they were quite loud about it. The day the news broke, spies from every corner of the world rushed toward the eternal Dao realm like madmen. They saw the lingering visions of burning heavens above the Gu estate. They saw the terrifying lineup of 300 saints and dozens of great emperors standing guard. One by one, they quietly swallowed whatever schemes they had planned and replaced them with congratulatory gifts. No one dared to move against us. We were the leaders of the 5 great imperial clans, the ones who held the reins of the world. Trying to touch a child with the Finshin immortal body was just a faster way to reach the grave. 5 years later, the morning sun spilled across the stone courtyard of the Gu estate, turning everything gold. A small, round golden bird darted out from under the eaves. It was about the size of a human head, its feathers shimmering with a rainbow glow. Sitting on the bird's back was a 5-year-old boy in a small white robe. His hair was tied back with a simple golden ribbon, revealing a face as pale and smooth as jade. But his eyes were the most striking part, golden pupils as clear as a starlit sky. That boy was me. "Giddy up," I shouted, patting the golden crow's head with my tiny hand. The taiga golden crow was an ancient, earth-tier beast that had lived for countless millennia, yet here it was, being used as a pony by a 5-year-old. And honestly, it seemed to love it. It let out a cheerful chirp and spread its wings, darting from the eaves to the treetops, then to the rock gardens, and up to the roof. It moved like a streak of golden lightning. The servants below looked up, but they didn't stop their work. They were used to it. After 5 years of this, everyone was used to it. "Young master, slow down," a cold yet anxious voice called out from behind. Empress Yawang followed us, her white dress fluttering like snow as she stepped through the air. In 5 years, her beauty hadn't changed a bit, but her indifferent eyes now held a touch of helplessness and doting affection. "Young master, please, you'll fall." I completely ignored her. I was riding a taiga golden crow, for heaven's sake. What danger could there be? Besides, this was the Gu estate. With 300 saints and dozens of great emperors around, this place was safer than a bank vault. The little bird chirped again, sensing my excitement, and pushed its speed even further. Yawang sighed and quickened her pace to keep up. My life over the past 5 years had been pure bliss. During the day, I flew around the estate on my big bird, going from the eastern courtyards to the western library. Whenever I passed an ancestor's secluded meditation chamber, I'd shout a greeting, making those old monsters who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years burst into laughter. At night, I slept soundly in the Empress's arms. I did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. As for cultivation, I didn't even have to try. Most cultivators started at age 5, but my Finshin immortal body was different. Even without active training, my body breathed in the world's spiritual energy day and night, tempering itself automatically. After 5 years, I had already reached the peak of the profound mystery realm. I was only one step away from the 3rd stage, the spirit platform realm. It was terrifying. Other kids my age hadn't even touched the threshold of the 1st stage yet, but I was already closing in on the third. Everyone in the Gu family, from the ancestors to the servants, treated me like a precious treasure. Today, the estate was especially lively. A massive altar had been set up in the central martial grounds. Incense smoke drifted through the air, and the tables were piled high with offerings. Members from various branches of the clan gathered around, and in the front stood a dozen or so children, all 5 or 6 years old. They looked nervous and excited. Today was the annual Bloodline Awakening Day, the day they would officially begin their journey as cultivators. I hovered in the air on the back of the golden crow, looking down at the scene. "Young master, we should head down now," Yawang said softly beside me. I waved her off, my golden eyes scanning the crowd. No rush, no rush. In the center of the grounds stood a 10-foot-tall stone stele. It was pitch black and polished like a mirror, glowing with a faint internal light. This was the awakening stone. They said that touching it would activate the sleeping bloodline power within a person's body. A thin, gray-robed old man stepped onto the stage. His eyes were sharp, and his aura was as deep as the ocean. Even though he held back his pressure, everyone instinctively held their breath. He was a saint-level powerhouse. "Silence," the old man said. His voice wasn't loud, but it rang clearly in everyone's ears. The crowd went still. The children stood up straighter, barely daring to breathe. The old man scanned the group, his gaze lingering on me in the air for a moment before he nodded and looked back to the children. "Today is the day of your awakening," he began calmly. "Before we start, I will explain why we do this." The children leaned in, ears perked. The old man put his hands behind his back. "Our Gu clan is an ancient, eternal family. Unlike others, one of our ancestors was a powerhouse who surpassed the heavens and the earth." The adults had heard this before, but the children's eyes widened. Surpassing the heavens? What kind of level was that? The old man continued. That ancestor's name was Gu Changa. Where he is now, no one knows. But one thing is certain. He transcended the constraints of this world. As his descendants, his blood flows through your veins. Usually this power sleeps. Only through this awakening can it be activated. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Furthermore, during this awakening, you will have a chance to manifest a talent. It could be a special physique, a divine ability, or a boost to your comprehension. It varies for everyone. In the past, we have awakened the desolate ancient holy body and the heavenly tyrant body. Those clansmen are now the pillars of our family, the weakest among them being in the saint realm. The children's eyes lit up. The saint realm was a dream for them. The old man nodded at their enthusiasm and signaled for the ceremony to begin. The old man finished his speech and took a deep breath. He added one final detail. Our Gu clan disciples are divided into ranks. The purer your bloodline, the stronger your talent. There are 9 sequences in total. He looked toward the group of children and began calling names. Disciples of the 9th sequence stepped forward. A few children walked out from the crowd. They glanced at each other, their small hands trembling with nerves. The old man pointed toward a massive black stone tablet. "One by one, place your hand on it. Clear your mind. Let your bloodline awaken on its own." A little girl went first. She was timid, shuffling toward the tablet in tiny steps. She looked up at the stone, which was several times taller than her, and swallowed hard. Slowly, she reached out and pressed her palm against the surface. The stone suddenly hummed. A faint green light rippled across its black surface, crawling from the girl's palm to her arms, eventually wrapping her entire body in a soft glow. After a moment, the light faded, and lines of text flickered onto the stone. The old man glanced at the results and gave a small nod. Bloodline purity, 60%. Talent, heart of wisdom. It provides a slight boost to cultivation comprehension. Not bad. The girl pulled her hand back, looking confused. She didn't really understand what it meant, but her parents were already ecstatic. 60%. My daughter hit 60%. Even if it wasn't a legendary physique, a 60% purity was considered upper middle tier in the Gu clan. The Heart of Wisdom was a practical talent that would make her future training twice as effective. One by one, the children went up to the stage. I watched from the sidelines, but suddenly, a familiar sound rang out in my mind. Ding, my eyes lit up. It had been years since the system triggered a life choice. The last time was the day I was born. It seemed Xiao Chun, the so-called son of destiny, was finally about to stumble upon a new opportunity. A semi-transparent panel floated in front of me, showing a scene only I could see. The image shifted to the lower realms, specifically the Songyun realm. Xiao Chun was trekking through a dense, ancient forest. He looked pathetic. His face was covered in dirt, and his clothes were shredded by thorns and branches. It was clear his last few years hadn't been easy. Ever since he rejected the help of Yi Qingli and the Golden Lion, he had been wandering aimlessly. It wasn't that he didn't want to leave the woods. He just couldn't find his way out. He had no map, no direction, and no one to ask for help. He survived on wild fruit and stream water. But a son of destiny is always lucky. As he walked, Xiao Chun suddenly stopped. He found a cliff face hidden behind thick vines. A cool breeze was whistling through the leaves. A cave. Xiao Chun's eyes brightened. He pushed the vines aside to reveal a dark opening, just wide enough for one person. He hesitated for a second, then crawled inside. The tunnel grew wider as he went. After walking for the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, the space opened up into a massive underground grotto. It was breathtaking. The cavern was filled with spiritual herbs. Lingji, ginseng, and shou grew in thick patches everywhere. Xiao Chun stood there, stunned. All of this is mine. He swallowed hard, his eyes gleaming with greed. From my perspective outside the screen, these treasures looked like trash. The weeds in the Gu clan's backyard were worth more than this entire cave. But Xiao Chun ignored the herbs for a moment, sensing something better deeper inside. At the very back of the cave, he found a figure. No, it wasn't a person, it was a skeleton. The bones sat against the stone wall, draped in rotted rags. Even though it was just a frame, the bones emitted a faint golden light. Broken fragments of magical tools lay scattered around it, clearly destroyed in battle. Xiao Chun realized he had stumbled upon the tomb of a powerful cultivator. He knelt and bowed 3 times. "Senior, I didn't mean to intrude. Since you have passed on, leaving these treasures here is a waste. I will take them, but I promise to give you a proper burial afterward. What do you think?" He reached out to start picking herbs, but then, crack, the skeleton moved. Xiao Chun froze. He slowly turned his head to see the bones sitting upright. 2 flickering green flames ignited in the empty eye sockets. Xiao Chun scrambled back, his face turning pale. "Senior." The skeleton raised a bony hand and waved it dismissively. A dry, raspy voice echoed through the cave. "Do not fear. I am long dead. This is merely a final wisp of my soul." Xiao Chun exhaled, calming down slightly. The ghost flames in the skull flickered. "I heard what you said. A proper burial. In all these years, you are the first to offer me peace instead of just grabbing for my things. You have potential, boy." Xiao Chun quickly cupped his hands. "You flatter me, senior." "My time is short," the skeleton continued. "Since fate brought you here, I will grant you a legacy. My name was Xinyang. I was a cultivator from the 3,000 Dao states. I wasn't at the top, but I managed to reach the Saint Realm." The skeleton's voice suddenly turned bitter and hateful. "Years ago, over a trivial matter, I offended one of the longevity families, the Gu clan. They were bullies. It was an accident, but they sent a peak Saint Realm expert to hunt me down. He destroyed my body and my cultivation. I barely escaped with a fragment of my soul, using my life-bound treasure. I've been rotting here ever since." The cave went silent. Outside the screen, I raised an eyebrow. The Gu clan? So this guy had a grudge against my family. I shrugged it off. He was just a saint. If my family wiped him out, they probably had a good reason. Back in the cave, the skeleton calmed down and looked at Xiao Chun. "I can't take my belongings with me. The herbs are yours. But there is more." The skeleton reached into its own chest and snapped off a rib bone. Crack! The bone glowed with a soft, holy golden light. "This is my life-bound saint bone. All the essence of a saint is condensed within it. If you refine this, it will help you break through future bottlenecks. You'll understand its true power once it's yours." Xiao Chun took the bone with shaking hands. A saint bone? He had never even dreamed of seeing something so valuable. "Thank you, senior. Thank you." He banged his head on the ground in gratitude. "Go," the skeleton whispered. "Refine it well. Do not disappoint me. And one more thing. The voice became deadly serious. If you ever reach the Saint Realm, I want you to avenge me. Destroy the Gu clan. Shao Chun gripped the Saint Bone, ready to swear his oath. Back in the Gu clan, I watched the screen, waiting for my next move. As I watched the screen, a notification panel popped up in front of my eyes. Ding! Child of Destiny, Shao Chun, has triggered a life choice. Faced with the gift of the Saint Bone and the request for revenge from Saint Xinyang, how will you choose? The options appeared one by one. Option A was to accept the bone and swear to destroy the Gu clan. That was a hard pass. I wasn't about to let this kid plot against my own family. Option B was to refuse because the karma was too heavy. Too boring. Option D was to try and haggle for the bone without promising revenge. Too indecisive. Then I saw option C. My lips curled into a grin. Take the Saint Bone, immediately start a fire to make soup, and claim you'll brew it for 30 years while refusing the revenge request. I burst out laughing. That was the one. I tapped my small finger on the screen. Back in the cave, Shao Chen's expression shifted instantly. He looked at the glowing Saint Bone, then back at the skeleton. Suddenly, he reached into his storage bag and pulled out a massive iron pot. He set up a stove, lit a fire, and filled the pot with water. Without a word, he tossed the priceless Saint Bone directly into the water. The skeleton froze. What are you doing? Shao Chen ignored him. He started pulling out jars of seasoning, star anise, cinnamon, salt, and various herbs, throwing them in one by one. He slapped the lid on and cranked up the heat. The saint's soul was speechless. Junior, what is the meaning of this? Shao Chen looked up with a dead serious face. Senior, refining it normally is a waste. If I just absorb it, I'll only get 30% of the energy. But if I make soup, I can drink a bowl every day. I'll simmer this bone for 30 years. Every drop of essence will be preserved. Isn't that a beautiful plan? The skeleton had lived for over 100,000 years, but he had never seen anyone try to turn a saint's legacy into broth. Shao Chun lifted the lid, took a spoonful of the bubbling liquid, blew on it, and took a sip. He looked ecstatic. Delicious. A Saint Bone really does make better soup than regular ones. The green flames in the skeleton's eye sockets flickered violently. He was shaking with pure rage. You brat, he roared, his voice shaking the entire cave. I gave you my essence to raise your cultivation, not to be treated like a soup base. What do you take me for? A grocery store? Shao Chen flinched, but muttered under his breath. Don't be so sensitive, senior. It's mine now, right? I should be able to use it how I want. Get out, the skeleton screamed. He reached out, and the Saint Bone flew out of the pot, zooming back into his skeletal chest. I would rather take this bone to my grave than give it to a fool like you. Leave. Shao Chen panicked. Wait. I'll refine it. I'll do it properly. Too late. The skeleton's voice was full of disgust. I thought you were a talent, but you have no respect. Begone. A massive wave of energy erupted from the skeleton, blasting Shao Chun, his pot, and his seasonings straight out of the cave. He hit the dirt outside with a thud, and the vines at the entrance sealed shut. He sat there in the mud, looking dazed. His golden ticket was gone. I laughed so hard I nearly rolled off my seat. Ding! Asterisk detected that the Child of Destiny's path has drastically deviated. Shao Chun has lost the Saint Bone opportunity. Asterisk. Asterisk returning luck to the heavenly Tao. Current luck saturation, 0.10%. Asterisk. Triggering critical return, 1 billion-fold multiplier, reward, Supreme Bone. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy flooded my body. It wasn't just spiritual chi, it was something ancient and primal. It rushed toward my chest, condensing and hardening. I looked down and saw a golden light glowing beneath my skin. The Supreme Bone was forming inside me. I took a deep breath, feeling a power so immense I couldn't even measure it yet. Not bad, I whispered, satisfied. Gu Changa, it's your turn, a voice called out. I snapped back to reality. I hopped down from the Golden Crow and walked toward the center of the plaza. Thousands of eyes were on me. I could even feel the gazes of the ancient ancestors watching from the shadows of the forbidden grounds. These old monsters never came out for anything, but today, they were all watching the bloodline awakening. I stood before the 10-foot-tall stone tablet and placed my small hand against the cold surface. The tablet didn't glow green or gold. It exploded with 7 colors at once: red, orange, yellow, green, teal, blue, and purple. The light wrapped around my arm and surged into my body. My blood began to boil. The power of my ancestor, Guchanga, was waking up. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted from my small frame. It wasn't the power of a 5-year-old. It was a force that cracked the stone floor and tore the clouds in the sky apart. The entire eternal Tao realm began to tremble. But that was just the start. The supreme bone in my chest reacted to the bloodline, and the 7-colored light turned into a blinding gold. High above in the sky, a massive phantom appeared, a single, golden bone floating in the heavens, radiating a pressure that made even Saint Realm experts tremble. The supreme bone, one of the Gu ancestors shouted, standing up so fast his chair flew back. It's really the supreme bone. The legends say whoever possesses it is destined to rule the heavens. The crowd went wild. 300 Saint Realm experts stood up in unison, staring at the sky in pure shock. Born with the Finchen immortal body and now awakening the supreme bone at age 5, my family realized right then that the Gu clan was about to become unstoppable. Dozens of hidden powerhouses watched from the shadows. They didn't stand up, but I could see the shock in their eyes. The supreme bone was something even peak cultivators would kill for. I kept my hand pressed against the cold stone tablet. I could feel the bone in my chest acting like a black hole, frantically devouring the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to fuel its growth. The golden light on my chest grew brighter and more intense by the second. Then, I felt a snap inside me. The bottleneck of the peak pulse-turning realm shattered like thin glass. Boom. At 5 years old, I broke through to the spirit platform realm. The entire square fell into a deathly silence. Everyone stared at me, a 5-year-old boy bathed in fading rainbow light and a blinding golden glow. A 5-year-old with the Finchen immortal body, the supreme bone, and the cultivation of a spirit platform expert. Suddenly, in the deepest part of the Gu family's ancestral land, a being who had slept for ages opened his eyes. He was an old man, his age impossible to tell, with eyes as deep as the starry sky. He didn't release a single ripple of power, looking like a common old man, but everyone knew who he was. He was the Gu family's sole heaven-level ancestor, the pillar that allowed our clan to dominate the 3,000 Dao domains. He didn't show his face, but his voice drifted across the entire estate. It wasn't a shout. It was a calm announcement that reached every ear clearly. From this day forward, Guchanga is the godchild of the Gu family. He shall enjoy unlimited resources. His status is equal to that of the ancestors. The silence lasted for a heartbeat before the crowd erupted. The Gu family was in an absolute frenzy. A godchild. The clan hadn't appointed one in a million years. Countless geniuses had come and gone, but none were worthy. Now, the great ancestor himself had spoken. This meant I was the future leader of the entire Gu clan. The entire family would now exist to pave my way. My father, Gu Qingyun, stood in the air and looked down at me. A small smile played on his lips. I could tell what he was thinking. My son has the potential to reach the heavens. I pulled my hand back from the stone tablet and walked toward him. I didn't smile or act like a playful kid this time. I kept my face serious. "Father," I said, "there is something I need to tell you." My father blinked. For the last 5 years, I had been a happy-go-lucky kid. He had never seen me look this solemn. "What is it?" I couldn't tell him the truth about my past life, obviously. I took a deep breath and started making things up on the fly. Just now, when I awakened the supreme bone, I caught a glimpse of the secrets of heaven. I saw a thread of karma. My father's expression shifted instantly. Even Empress Yaoguang, standing nearby, opened her eyes wide. Heaven's secrets and karma were concepts that even great emperors struggled to grasp. Usually, they could only see a fuzzy corner of the future. But I was 5, and I was claiming to see the threads of fate. If anyone else had said it, my father wouldn't have believed a word. But I was his son. I had the immortal body and the supreme bone. I was a miracle since birth. To him, nothing I did was impossible. "What did you see?" My father knelt down so we were eye level, his voice heavy with importance. I lowered my voice, looking him dead in the eye. "Father, in the lower realm, in a place called the Blue Cloud World. Inside a hidden cave, there is a saint-level skeleton. His Dao name is Xianyang. My father frowned. Xianyang? I've never heard of him. I pressed on. A fragment of his soul is hiding in those bones. He wants to resurrect. He wants revenge. I watched my father's face. To the Gu family, a saint-level expert was an ant, and a remnant soul was even less. But I knew how these stories went. A single spark could start a prairie fire. If you don't pull a weed out by the roots, it'll come back to haunt you. My father's frown deepened. As the head of the clan, he had wiped out too many enemies to count. If a saint-level expert had been killed by our family, it usually wasn't a big enough event for him to remember. After a moment, his eyes cleared. Wait, he muttered. I remember now. But Xianyang wasn't killed by a peak saint. He was handled by a clan member at the first layer of the saint realm. I twitched. That bastard Xianyang was a liar even in death. He claimed he was taken down by a peak saint to save face, when in reality, he got smoked by a low-level guard. His obsession with his reputation was pathetic. You deserve to die, I thought. My father stood up, his gaze turning sharp and cold. Leaving a job half done was a taboo in the Gu family. We were an ancient imperial clan. We did things cleanly. We had destroyed countless sects since the ancient era because we never gave our enemies a second chance. When we kill completely. Not even a shred of a soul is left behind. My father sent out his divine sense and called out, "Come here." A figure dropped from the sky. He was a middle-aged man with a cold face and a deep, powerful aura. A saint of the third layer. Patriarch, the man said, bowing. What is your name? My father asked. I am Gu Xing. My father repeated the name, then asked, Years ago, you killed a man named Xianyang. Do you remember? Gu Xing paused, thinking back. Then he nodded. I remember. I was at the first layer of the saint realm back then. My father stared him down. Are you certain you killed him? Gu Xing shivered. He could hear the edge in my father's voice. He went through the memory again. I am certain. I destroyed his body and crushed his soul. There was no way for him to survive. My father shook his head. You didn't finish the job. A fragment of his soul survived. He's been lingering in the blue cloud world all this time. Gu Xing's face went pale, and sweat beaded on his forehead. Failing to wipe out an enemy was the ultimate disgrace for a Gu family enforcer. The punishment could be devastating. He dropped to his knees. It was my oversight. Please, Patriarch, punish me. It's understandable that you missed a tiny soul fragment, my father said calmly. I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Name your command. Gu Xing shouted. Go to the blue cloud world. Find that cave and the man named Xianyang, my father said, as if he were talking about taking out the trash. Destroy him completely. His bones, his soul, leave nothing behind. Understood. Gu Xing vanished in a flash of light. Meanwhile, in a deep mountain cave in the blue cloud world, a young man named Xiao Chun had just left. The withered bones of the Xianyang saint rested against the stone wall. The ghostly green flames in his eye sockets were dim. He was still fuming over the trash kid who had just walked out, his soul weakened by the anger. I thought I'd found a genius, the saint sighed to himself. No matter. The cave is still here. My bones are still here. I'll wait for the next fated person. Suddenly, boom. The space above the cave ripped open. A terrifying pressure descended from the sky, so powerful that the entire blue cloud world began to tremble. The green fire in the saint's eyes shrank in terror. This aura. He didn't even have time to react before a cold-faced man appeared inside the cave. It was Gu Xing. When the Xianyang saint saw that face, his entire skeleton began to rattle. It's you. His voice shook with pure horror. He would never forget that face. That was the man who had shattered his body and ruined his life all those years ago. How did you find me? The Xianyang saint's voice was thick with disbelief. It's been tens of thousands of years. I hid in the lower realms, in a cave this remote. How could you possibly track me down? Gu Xing stared at the pile of withered bones with an expressionless face. That's none of your concern. All you need to know is that I'm here to finish the job. The saint was stunned. No, it's impossible. You couldn't have known I was still alive. You couldn't have found me in a place this small. Gu Xing didn't bother answering. He simply raised his hand. A sliver of light began to gather at his fingertip. When the saint saw that glow, his flickering soul fragment nearly scattered from pure terror. He scrambled off the stone wall, his skeleton clattering loudly as he tried to flee into the depths of the cave. But where could he go? Against the powerhouse of the Saint Realm's third stage, this tiny soul fragment was less than an ant. Gu Xing flicked his finger. The light flew out silently. It struck the bones, and the Xianyang Saint instantly disintegrated into ash. Those two eerie green flames in his eye sockets didn't even have time to flicker before they were extinguished forever. Just like that, the Xianyang Saint was erased from existence. Gu Xing stood in the cave, his divine sense sweeping through every corner to ensure nothing remained. His gaze eventually landed on the treasures scattered across the floor, herbs and artifacts the saint had spent a lifetime collecting. To Gu Xing, they were garbage. With a casual wave of his hand, a massive boom echoed through the cavern. Every spirit herb, every magic tool, and every scrap of treasure was ground into fine dust. Finally, Gu Xing leaned down and picked up a single golden bone from the ashes. This was the saint bone, the source of the saint's life power. It was the only thing that had survived his strike. A mere first-stage saint actually managed to breed a saint bone, Gu Xing muttered. Impressive, in a way. He tucked the bone into his storage space, tore a hole in the fabric of reality, and stepped through. Meanwhile, a short distance away, Xiao Chun was sitting on a rock, staring blankly at the ground. He felt empty. The bone was gone, his big opportunity was gone, everything was gone. He stood up, brushed the dirt off his clothes, and started walking back toward his village. But after a few steps, he stopped. He looked back toward the cave, feeling a strange twinge of guilt. Did I mess up? He whispered. The more he thought about it, the worse he felt. That old senior had given him the bone hoping he'd refine it, get stronger, and eventually take revenge. Even though the old man didn't force him, the bone and the treasures were free gifts. Throwing them back in his face felt a bit excessive. He took a deep breath. Fine, I'll go back and apologize. I'll get that bone back first, and maybe later I can use it to make some soup. The old guy is dead anyway. He won't know the difference. He turned around and headed back to the cave. But as he got closer, something felt wrong. When he first arrived, the cave was overflowing with spirit herbs, and the air was thick with the scent of medicine. Now, there was nothing. Even the smell had faded. His heart sank. He sprinted to the deepest part of the cave and froze. The cave was gone. The bones were gone. All that remained was a charred, blackened crater on the ground, as if the entire place had been purged by divine fire. The walls were shattered, the floor was caved in, everything had been wiped clean. Xiaoqin stood there for a long time, unable to move. Then, he started stomping his feet in a blind rage. It's gone. All of it. The treasures, the bone. There isn't even a shard of bone left. He knelt down and sifted through the scorched earth, finding absolutely nothing. If I had known, I wouldn't have been in such a hurry to mention the soup. I should have just promised him the revenge, taken the bone, and left. Why couldn't I keep my mouth shut? He paced around the ruins a few more times, confirming that not a single scrap of value remained. Finally, he hung his head and trudged away, mourning the legendary opportunity he had just thrown away. Back in the Gu clan's territory, the void cracked open. Gu Xing stepped out into the family estate, clutching the golden saint bone. He walked straight to my father, Gu Qingyun, and dropped to his knees, holding the bone above his head with both hands. I have traveled to the blue cloud world and completely annihilated the soul of Xianyang, Gu Xing reported. There is no possibility of his return. My father nodded and took the bone. Did he leave anything else behind? I destroyed everything in the cave, Gu Xing replied. Treasures, artifacts. Nothing remains except this saint bone. My father glanced at the bone, set it aside like a common trinket, and dismissed him. Once Gu Xing was gone, my father turned to me. His eyes were filled with genuine shock. My son, did you truly glimpse the secrets of heaven? I nodded calmly. My father took a deep breath. A 5-year-old who had just awakened a supreme bone and could already peer into the future? No one would believe it, yet the proof was right here. There really was a soul fragment in the lower realms. He really was a saint we had killed before. Everything I said matched perfectly. There was a tiny discrepancy. Xianyang was only a first-stage saint, not a peak saint, but that didn't matter. The core of my prophecy was dead accurate. My son is truly blessed by the heavens, my father said, patting my shoulder heavily. I don't know how it works, father, I said, playing the part of the innocent child. I just see things sometimes. Maybe it's because of the supreme bone. He didn't push for more answers. Fate and heavenly secrets were mysterious things. If his son had this power, it was a massive win for the clan. Changsheng, remember this, he said, crouching down to my level. I am the clan leader. Aside from the ancient ancestors, I can command anyone to do anything. If you see another vision, you must tell me immediately. Understand? I understand, I replied. A smile spread across his face. Good. Now that the bloodline awakening is done, it's time to choose your cultivation technique. We headed to the Gu clan scripture library. It wasn't a building inside the estate. It was a separate dimension hidden in the void. When my father tore open the space and led me inside, even I, someone who had seen plenty of wonders, was stunned. It was a vast, endless starry sky. There was no floor, no ceiling, just infinite darkness filled with drifting stars. Each star was a cultivation technique. Some were dim, while others glowed with blinding intensity. The largest ones hung in the deepest reaches of the cosmos, radiating light like miniature suns. Our clan has existed for eternity, my father explained, gesturing to the stars. We have countless techniques. The standard ranks, heaven, earth, black, and yellow, are just the basics. Above them, we have saint-grade and emperor-grade scriptures. I looked up at the vast expanse. How many emperor-grade scriptures do we have? 300, my father said casually, as if he were talking about the weather. I knew how insane that number was. Most great powers in the 3,000 worlds were lucky to have one emperor-grade technique. Some had none at all. The Gu clan had 300. That was the true foundation of an ancient long-life family. What about those? I pointed to the very back, where 3 stars shone brighter than anything else in the sky. My father's expression turned solemn. Those are the transcendent scriptures, the absolute peak of our clan's power. We have 3. I raised an eyebrow. Transcendent scriptures were myths, things that surpassed even emperor-grade techniques. In the entire 3,000 worlds, you could count the number of such scriptures on one hand. The Gu clan owned 3 of them. As we stood there, other children from my generation, the ones who had awakened their bloodlines with me, began to arrive with their parents. We all gathered in the center of the void. The gray-robed elder appeared once more, his eyes scanning the group. Everyone is here, he announced. The gray-robed elder's eyes swept across every child's face. After awakening our bloodlines, our official cultivation journey was finally beginning. Today, we were at the scripture pavilion to choose the techniques that would define our futures. Remember, the elder warned, his voice echoing through the void. Choosing a technique is a two-way street. You don't just choose the technique must choose you. Close your eyes and feel with your heart. If you sense a star approaching, reach out and grab it. Whatever you catch is the technique best suited for you. The other children nodded eagerly and closed their eyes. I did the same. Almost immediately, the room shifted. I heard gasps as stars began to react to the other kids. Some children saw dim stars drifting toward them. They reached out, and the star transformed into a streak of light, sinking into their foreheads. The technique was theirs. Other, more talented kids had 2 or 3 stars floating around them. They naturally picked the brightest one. The elder nodded in approval, but said nothing. One by one, the children finished their selection and ran back to their parents, faces glowing with excitement. But I didn't move. I stood there, eyes closed, my consciousness submerged in total darkness. Suddenly, my supreme bone and Finchen immortal body ignited simultaneously. A blinding golden light erupted from my chest, illuminating the entire artificial starry sky. The scripture pavilion groaned and shook. The thousands of stars floating in the void began to act erratically. The smaller stars scrambled backward as if they had encountered a terrifying predator. It wasn't that I wasn't choosing them. It was that they weren't worthy. They didn't even dare to get close to me. Soon, the mid-tier stars retreated. Then the high-tier ones. Even the saint-grade scriptures fled to the furthest corners of the room. The emperor-grade scriptures flickered in the distance, trembling, but not one of them dared to step forward. Out of the tens of thousands of techniques in the Gu clan's collection, not a single one felt worthy of me. The gray-robed elder's eyes nearly popped out of his head. He had lived for eons and had never seen the scriptures act afraid of a child. That was when the three transcendent scriptures at the very back of the cosmos began to move. They drifted toward me with extreme caution, circling me like they were testing the waters. They hovered nearby, wanting to connect, but even these legendary techniques seemed hesitant. They were powerful, sure, but in the face of a true immortal body, even they felt lacking. They lingered, unwilling to leave but too intimidated to merge. It was an awkward stalemate. While the physical world was in chaos, my consciousness drifted even deeper. Ding! A system notification chimed in my head. A new panel appeared. New Destiny Child detected, Lin Fan. Would you like to bind? I didn't hesitate. I clicked yes. Binding successful. Current Destiny Children, Xiao Chun, Lin Fan. The system immediately triggered a life choice event for Lin Fan. A screen shimmered into existence before my eyes, showing me a completely different world, a lower realm. I saw a massive plaza packed with people. It was recruitment day for the major sects. Dozens of representatives sat at long tables, Taoist elders in flowing robes, Buddhist monks with glowing bald heads, and sharp-eyed sword cultivators. Their banners fluttered in the wind: Taishu Holy Land, Great Lane Temple, Heavenly Sword Sect. In the center of the plaza stood a 16-year-old boy. He was handsome, tall, and dressed in simple white robes. This was Lin Fan. He had just finished his talent test, and the results were carved into a massive stone monument for everyone to see. Dust Transcending Realm, 7th Stage. In a lower realm like this, that was monstrous talent. The crowd was buzzing. Everyone knew the big sects were about to start a war over him. The elder from the Taishu Holy Land spoke first. Lin Fan, join us. You'll go straight to the main peak and learn our strongest Earth-grade techniques. It's enough to take you far beyond the profound heaven realm. The monk from the Great Lane Temple jumped in next. Umitba, Lin Fan, our Buddhist techniques are vast. If you join us, I will personally take you as my disciple. The Heavenly Sword Sect elder stood up, his aura sharp. Come to us. Our sword arts are unrivaled. They are perfect for a genius like you. Lin Fan just stood there, expressionless, as the most powerful forces in his world begged for his attention. The other applicants looked like they wanted to die of envy. They were struggling just to be noticed, and here he was, being treated like royalty. Then, four options popped up on my system screen. A. Join Taishu Holy Land and cultivate Earth-grade techniques. B. Join Great Lane Temple and become a monk. C. Reject the great powers and join a tiny sect called the Gi sect, led by a weak ancestor. D. Ask the Baiwa sect if they take male disciples. I looked at the options and focused my mind on option C. Host has selected option C. Back in the vision, Lin Fan moved. He didn't look at the Holy Land, the temple, or the sword sect. His gaze bypassed all the giants and landed on a dusty corner of the plaza. There sat a lone old man in a tattered gray robe. He looked ancient and tired, his aura barely reaching the 2nd stage of the profound heaven realm, hardly stronger than Lin Fan himself. His sign simply read, Gi sect. The old man hadn't even bothered to speak. He knew a genius like Lin Fan would never look twice at a tiny, unknown sect like his. He was just hoping to pick up a few average leftovers so he didn't go home empty-handed. But Lin Fan walked straight through the crowd and stopped in front of the old man. He bowed deeply. Senior, I am Lin Fan. I wish to join the Gi sect. The entire plaza went dead silent. The Taishu elder froze. The monk's prayer cut off mid-sentence. Everyone thought Lin Fan had lost his mind. The Gi sect elder stared at him, his voice trembling. You're talking to me? The Gi sect. Lin Fan looked him in the eye. Yes, I wish to join. Please accept me. The old man's face turned bright red with excitement. He looked like he was about to cry. Good. Yes, I accept you. From this day on, you are a disciple of the Gi sect. Lin Fan bowed deeply once again. Thank you, senior, he said. The crowd around us went absolutely ballistic. They were screaming that he was insane. Who in their right mind would turn down the Taishu Holy Land for something called the Gi sect? Nobody had even heard of them. They all thought Lin Fan's brain had finally snapped. The elder from the Taishu Holy Land didn't say a word. His face turned a sickly shade of green, and he flicked his sleeves in anger before storming off. The monk from the Great Lane Temple just shook his head, chanted a silent prayer, and disappeared. The elder from the Heaven Sword sect looked at Lin Fan with a long, heavy sigh and turned away. Lin Fan just stood there, his face as calm as a still lake. He had his reasons. He wanted the weakest-looking sect on purpose. In these stories, the most pathetic-looking place usually hid the greatest secrets. Back in my own reality, the system notification chimed in my ear. Ding! Asterisk detected that the Destiny Child, Lin Fan, has significantly deviated from his original fate path. Lin Fan failed to join the Taishu Holy Land and lost the Earth rank cultivation technique he was supposed to obtain, returning a portion of the Heavenly Tao's charm to the host. Asterisk. Current Heavenly Tao charm saturation, 0.14%. Asterisk. Congratulations, host. You have triggered a critical return strike. Return multiplier, 1 billion times. Asterisk. Earth rank technique return upgraded. Suddenly, the 3 heaven-earth scriptures that had been hovering in the library let out a collective shiver. They scrambled back into the depths of the starry sky, their golden light dimming as if they were terrified. The gray-robed old man watching me couldn't believe his eyes. He had lived for centuries and had never seen the heaven-earth scriptures act like scared children. But the real shock was happening inside me. A technique was being birthed right now, and it wasn't coming from the library shelves. It was growing from my own body, forged from the union of my Finchen immortal body and my supreme bone. Golden light condensed within my chest, forming ancient scriptures. The characters were so old they felt like they predated time itself. Every single word radiated an aura that crushed the heaven-earth scriptures into insignificance. This was an immortal scripture, a technique from the actual immortal realm. The old man's jaw dropped. He was shaking so hard, he could barely stand. What is this?" he stammered. The golden text floated out of my body for a brief moment, hanging in the air, before turning into a stream of pure energy that slammed into my mind. My consciousness exploded like a supernova. Countless verses burned themselves into my memory, etching the Taiku immortal scripture into my very soul. I now possessed the ultimate power of the heavens. I opened my eyes. My golden pupils shimmered with ancient runes for a second before fading back to normal. Everything went quiet. The old man just stood there, mouth agape. He wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, he managed to choke out one sentence. "Disciple, have you chosen your technique?" I nodded calmly. "I have." The old man swallowed hard. He didn't ask what it was. He knew he didn't have the right to ask. Whatever I had just manifested was something so powerful it made the laws of the world tremble. I turned and walked toward my father, Gu Qingyun. He looked like he had seen a ghost. His expression wasn't just shock, it was a deep, soul-level awe. He stared at me for a long time, unable to speak. "Let's go," he finally said. "It's time to go home." I hopped onto the back of the Golden Crow, and Empress Yawang fell in line behind me. We vanished into the void, leaving the library behind. The gray-robed old man watched the spot where we disappeared, whispering to himself. Even the heaven-earth scriptures were afraid. Just what kind of power was that? As we were heading back, a voice suddenly echoed through the void. It was old, rasping, and felt like it was coming from both the highest heavens and the deepest depths of the earth at the same time. "Qingyun." My father froze instantly. His face changed, and he immediately turned toward the source of the sound, bowing deeply. "Ancestor." I blinked. "Ancestor?" The Gu clan had dozens of ancestors. I had met plenty of them since I was born, and they usually just spent their time trying to hug me or brag about my talent. But my father's reaction was different this time. My father was the clan leader, a great emperor. He was respectful to the other ancestors, but he never lost his composure like this. Right now, he was bowing lower than I had ever seen. "Bring Changsheng to see me," the voice commanded. It was flat, emotionless, yet it carried the weight of the universe. My father looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "Ancestor, you want to see Changsheng?" There was no reply. The presence had already faded. My father took a deep breath and looked at me. "Father, which ancestor is it?" I asked. He stayed silent for a moment, then knelt down to look me in the eye. The Gu clan only has one true heavenly emperor. My heart skipped a beat. The heavenly emperor. The one man standing at the absolute peak of the 3,000 Dao realms. The man who had declared me the divine son the moment I was born. When I took over as clan leader, the ancestors summoned me once. My father whispered, his voice full of nostalgia. He spoke only 3 sentences to me. I haven't seen him again in hundreds of thousands of years. He stood up and took my hand. You are only 5 years old, and he has already summoned you. Let's go. My father tore open a rift in space. Empress Yaoguang tried to follow, but my father shook his head. The ancestor only wants to see Chongqing. The rift closed behind us. I followed my father through layers of twisted dimensions hidden beneath the Gu clan estate. Each layer was packed with terrifying formations and traps that would vaporize a normal cultivator, but they parted like water when they felt my father's aura. Finally, we reached a simple stone door. It was only about 10 feet tall, plain and uncarved. It looked like a regular rock, but the moment I saw it, my Finchen immortal body and supreme bone both hummed in recognition. My father stopped and let go of my hand. Go in, he said softly. I'll be waiting right here for you. I took a breath and walked forward. The stone door slid open without a sound. I stepped inside, and the door sealed shut behind me. The room was small, lit by a few dim spirit stones embedded in the walls. The floor was covered in simple straw. In the center sat an old man. He wore a tattered gray robe and sat cross-legged with bare feet. His white hair was a tangled mess, looking like it hadn't been brushed in centuries. His face was a map of deep, knife-carved wrinkles. He didn't look like a legendary cultivator at all. He looked like a regular old man you'd seen napping in a village square. But then he opened his eyes. I felt like my entire existence was being stripped bare. His eyes were cloudy, but behind that fog was a depth I couldn't comprehend. It was like looking into the eyes of time itself. He watched me, and I stood my ground, not saying a word. I felt that in front of this man, words were unnecessary. He looked me over, from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, as if inspecting a masterpiece. Finally, he spoke. Finchen immortal body, he whispered, his voice light as a breeze. The old man's voice was like wind blowing through withered leaves. As he whispered words like supreme drum and immortal scripture, my heart skipped a beat. His gaze eventually settled on the top of my head, then drifted down to the space between my eyebrows. For a split second, a tiny ripple of emotion crossed his cloudy eyes. He muttered something about karma that even he couldn't see through, but he didn't finish the thought. Instead, he looked up. His eyes seemed to pierce through the stone walls and the very fabric of space, staring into a distant, unknown time. He started reminiscing about the Taichu eras. He spoke of a time when the Gu clan was so glorious that the heavens and earth were our generals and 3,000 Dao realms were just a corner of our back garden. He looked back down at me, calling me a monster born during a time of great change. He wondered aloud if I was the one meant to restore the clan to its ancient glory. I was completely lost. A great change? What change? And what did he mean by restoring our glory? The Gu clan was already the leader of the 5 great families, ruling over the 3,000 Dao realms with hundreds of saints and dozens of Earth-level experts. If this wasn't our peak, then just how terrifying was the Gu clan during the Taichu eras? I wanted to ask him, but he shook his head and told me to just listen. Then, he started lecturing. His voice was soft, but every word rang clearly in my ears. He spoke about the nature of the Dao, using obscure, ancient language that sounded like a bunch of riddles. He talked about things being blurred, hazy, and hidden. I put on my best serious face. I nodded occasionally. I looked focused, like I was having a deep spiritual breakthrough. But in reality, I didn't understand a single word. Back in my old life, I hated studying ancient literature, and hearing it now just gave me a headache. I was actually getting pretty sleepy. But I couldn't let him see that. This man was the strongest being in our family, a monster who had lived for countless eons. If I spaced out now, it would be incredibly disrespectful. So, I kept my eyes wide and full of a fake hunger for knowledge. The ancestor seemed pleased with my reaction and kept going. He talked about the Tao expanding in all directions, being deeper than the ocean and higher than the sky. I kept nodding. I kept acting deep. But then, a familiar screen lit up in my vision. My system was back. I suddenly felt a jolt of energy. It felt exactly like being stuck in a boring class and finally getting to sneak a look at my phone. A notification popped up. The son of destiny, Lin Fan, had triggered a life choice. I immediately dove into the system to see what was happening. A scene played out before my eyes. I saw the Gi sect. It was a tiny place with only 3 peaks, the tallest one barely reaching a few hundred feet. Compared to even the smallest hill in the Gu clan, it was pathetic. But the sect square was decorated with lanterns and streamers. Everyone was cheering because their strongest ancestor, a man at the peak of the Tongxian realm, was taking a new disciple. That disciple was Lin Fan. He stood in the center of the crowd wearing a crisp white robe. He looked sharp and confident. The other disciples looked at him with pure envy. They were whispering about how he was already at the 7th level of the Juechen realm at only 16 years old. They called him a once-in-a-century genius who would finally put their sect on the map. Lin Fan was soaking it all up. He loved the attention. Even though the sect was tiny, he enjoyed being the biggest fish in a small pond. The sect ancestor stepped forward, his hands shaking with excitement. He told Lin Fan that in his 300 years of living, he had never seen such talent. He officially named Lin Fan his final disciple. Lin Fan bowed deeply, calling him master. The old man was so happy he could barely contain himself. Then, he turned to the crowd and announced he was giving Lin Fan a special treasure left behind by their founding ancestor. He pulled out a yellowed, tattered scroll. He handled it like it was the most precious thing in existence. The crowd gasped. The founder was the only person in their history to ever surpass the Lingtai realm. Legend said he had even traveled to worlds beyond their own. The ancestor explained that the scroll was only for the most gifted disciple, and since he himself wasn't talented enough to understand it, it belonged to Lin Fan. He held the scroll out. The entire square went silent. Everyone was staring at that treasure, waiting for Lin Fan to take it. Watching from the outside, I just shook my head. Even in a trashy little sect like that, the Son of Destiny still managed to stumble into a legacy. A Lingtai realm scroll was garbage to me, but for Lin Fan, it was a massive lucky break. His luck was truly disgusting. Then, the system prompt appeared. I had to choose how Lin Fan would react to the gift. Option A, accept the scroll and swear to lead the Gi sect to the top. A real man knows how to repay a debt of gratitude. Option B, calmly refuse, claiming he is too new and lacks the seniority to hold such a heavy treasure. Option C, take the scroll and rip it to shreds on the spot. Declare that true power comes from within, not from some old paper left behind by others. I looked at option D. Giving the scroll to a pretty junior sister seemed like a waste. Sure, there were a few decent-looking girls in the Gi sect, but the old ancestor had just called this a sacred treasure. Everyone was watching. If Lin Fan tried to be a simp and give it away, the old man would probably kick him out of the sect on the spot. The scroll would just end up back in the old man's hands, and Lin Fan would get nothing. It wasn't worth it. Then I saw option C, ripping it to shreds right there. My lips curled into a slow smirk. That was the one. I reached out and tapped the screen, selecting the third choice. In the projection, Lin Fan took the scroll with both hands. The entire square erupted in cheers. The disciples were shouting his name, their faces full of excitement and hope. They truly believed this boy was the future of their sect. Even the Gi sect ancestor had tears in his eyes. For 300 years, he had waited for a genius worthy of this ancestor's legacy. He thought the moment had finally arrived. Lin Fan held the scroll and took a deep breath. He looked at the crowd and began to speak. His voice was clear, reaching every corner of the square. He thanked his master and his peers for the gift. He paused for a moment, and then he said the word that changed everything. But the crowd went silent. Lin Fan looked up, his gaze filled with a strange, stubborn determination. He declared that a true powerhouse never relies on the shadows of those who came before. He claimed that relying on an ancestor's insights would only lead his own path astray. His voice grew louder and more arrogant. Before anyone could react, Lin Fan grabbed both ends of the scroll. With a sudden, violent jerk, he ripped it. The sound of tearing paper was deafening in the silence. He didn't stop there. He folded the pieces and ripped them again. 4 pieces. 8 pieces. The legendary treasure of the Gi sect fell to the ground like worthless confetti. The silence was absolute. It was like everyone had been turned to stone. The ancestor's smile was frozen on his face. His eyes were wide, staring at the floor in pure disbelief. This was a treasure he hadn't even dared to open for 300 years, and it had just been destroyed in seconds. His lips began to quiver. His entire body started to shake. Lin Fan didn't seem to notice the horror around him. He stood there, looking proud of himself. He told them he didn't need the scroll because he would find his own way. He expected them to be impressed by his resolve, but no one cheered. Some of the older disciples had red eyes. This wasn't just paper to them. It was the root of their entire sect. Lin Fan frowned, confused by the lack of applause. He asked them what was wrong and if they disagreed with his philosophy. The ancestor finally moved. He tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. What could he even say? Lin Fan wasn't technically wrong about relying on oneself, but that didn't mean he had to destroy the only legacy they had left. The old man knelt down, his hands trembling as he tried to pick up the tiny scraps of paper. He looked like he had aged 10 years in a single moment. Watching from the outside, I couldn't hold it back anymore. I burst out laughing. It was just too perfect. Suddenly, a soft, confused sound reached my ears. The projection vanished instantly. I snapped back to reality and realized I wasn't alone. I was sitting on a bed of dried grass, and the Tiendi old ancestor was sitting right across from me. He was frowning, his eyes fixed on my face. My heart skipped a beat. I had been supposed to be listening to his lecture on the Tao, and I had just laughed during the most serious part. The old man looked at me for a long time. He told me I should be paying attention. His voice was flat, lacking any real anger, but that somehow made me feel even guiltier. He reminded me that while I had incredible innate talents, they couldn't give me the wisdom he was trying to share. I quickly lowered my head and apologized, acting as sincere as possible. The ancestor didn't say anything else, but I saw the flicker of disappointment in his eyes. He probably thought I was just a typical 5-year-old, full of potential but too distracted by play to actually learn anything. He was likely considering ending the session early, thinking I wasn't ready for the deeper truths of the world. But then, a system notification chimed in my head. Lin Fan had officially lost his chance to comprehend the scroll, and his stolen luck was being returned to the world. Because of my choice, I triggered a 10,000-fold return. The garbage scroll reward had been transformed into something much greater, an instant state of enlightenment. A strange, ancient wave of energy suddenly exploded inside my body. It wasn't a violent blast, but it was incredibly pure. I closed my eyes and sat perfectly still. Golden light began to pour out of my skin. My Finchen immortal body, the supreme bone in my chest, and the ancient immortal scriptures all began to glow at once. The 3 powers started to weave together, spinning around me in a brilliant dance before slowly merging into one. The Tiendi old ancestor's eyes nearly bulged out of his head. He stood up, his calm demeanor completely shattered. He recognized what was happening immediately. It was an epiphany. I was 5 years old, and I had just entered a state of deep enlightenment right in front of him. He had spent his entire life studying the Tao and had only experienced 3 epiphanies, each one after thousands of years of bitter cultivation and near-death experiences. And yet, here I was, the kid he thought wasn't listening, achieving the impossible while sitting on a pile of hay. I had only listened to a few sentences of his sermon before the epiphany hit me. A low hum vibrated through the air. The golden light surrounding me deepened, growing thick and heavy. Within that radiance, blurry shadows began to manifest. I saw the 3-footed golden crow, the 9 heavens true phoenix, and the ancient fire dragon. A flaming giant towered over them all. These were the visions that had appeared when my Finchen immortal body was first born, but the transformation didn't stop there. Deep within the golden light, something even more ancient emerged. A vast expanse of primal chaos swirled around me. In the center of that void stood a blurry figure. I couldn't see his face or his body clearly, but I felt his essence. He was the incarnation of the Tao itself. The Tiendi old ancestor stared at that figure, his cloudy eyes filling with genuine shock for the first time. He whispered a single phrase, his voice so raspy it was barely audible. The origin of the Tao. I was only 5 years old, yet I was touching the very source of existence. The old man looked at my face. I remained perfectly still, my eyes closed. My expression was peaceful, showing no signs of pain or struggle. I was simply immersed in the epiphany, as if touching the origin of the world was the most natural thing in the day. The ancestor fell silent. After a long time, he closed his eyes and felt a wave of guilt. He realized he had completely misjudged me. I hadn't been ignoring him. I was so incredibly talented that my earlier smile was likely a result of instant comprehension. Inside my consciousness, the world of the stone room had vanished. I felt like I was falling into a bottomless abyss. There was no light, no sound, and no direction. There was only chaos. Then, I felt a power. It was heavy, impossibly heavy. It wasn't spiritual energy or physical strength. It was something more fundamental, like the very foundation of the universe. I reached out to touch it. A thunderclap exploded in my mind. I saw him. A giant stood before me, his head propping up the heavens and his feet planted firmly on the earth. His muscles were like mountain ranges, and his bones looked like they were cast from molten iron. He stood there like a pillar that could never fall. I recognized him instantly. In the myths of my past life on Earth, this was Pangu, the creator of the world. Suddenly, the Pangu phantom projected out of my body. It burst through the stone room, soared past the clouds, and stood tall between heaven and earth. Back in the room, the old ancestor's eyes shrunk to pinpricks. He watched as a massive shadow loomed behind me. The ceiling of the room meant nothing to it. The phantom pierced through the continent and reached into the highest heavens. The giant held up the sky. There was no ripple of spiritual power coming from him, but the sheer pressure and weight of his presence made even the old ancestor, a man who had lived through countless eras, feel like he couldn't breathe. The old man's mind raced. He had seen many phantoms in his life, but none compared to this. It wasn't about size. It was about the level of existence. He couldn't even fathom how strong this giant truly was. Deep in my mind, I stared at the Pangu phantom and felt his power. This was the Tao of strength. Pangu represented power in its purest form, the power to split the heavens and create the world. I reached out and grabbed just a tiny sliver of that force. My eyes snapped open. A flash of chaotic weight flickered in my golden pupils. I looked down at my hands. They were still the small, white, tender hands of a 5-year-old, but I could feel the difference. My cultivation was still at the first level of the Lingtai realm, but my raw strength had changed. Even a tiny fragment of the Tao of strength was enough to multiply my power several times over. "You're awake," the old man said. I looked up and saw a mix of shock, relief, and something I couldn't quite name in his eyes. "Did you have an epiphany?" I nodded. There was no point in hiding it. The giant phantom had been impossible to miss. I touched the edge of the Tao of strength, I told him. "Just a sliver, but I can feel it." The ancestor went silent again, repeating the words Tao of strength to himself. He knew exactly what that meant. Among the 3,000 great Taos, some were naturally stronger than others. The Tao of strength might seem simple at first, but if mastered, it sat at the very top. Power was the foundation of everything. He looked at me and smiled, laughing as he said, "Good," 3 times, each one louder than the last. He had thought I was too young to focus, but now he realized I was a monster, a genius beyond anything he had ever seen. I felt a bit guilty watching him celebrate. Truthfully, my breakthrough had more to do with the system's 10,000-fold return than his lecture, but I had to keep that secret to myself. "Changsheng," the old man said, his voice turning solemn. "On the day you turn 16, I will give you a coming-of-age gift. Something very precious." My eyes lit up. If a man like him called something precious, it had to be legendary. "What is it?" I asked. He shook his head, a mysterious smile on his face. "You'll find out when the time comes." I didn't push him. I stayed for a bit longer, listening to a few more words of wisdom before he gestured for me to leave. I bowed deeply and walked out of the room. As the heavy stone doors groaned shut behind me, the old ancestor sat alone on his pile of hay, looking completely puzzled. "I've lived a whole lifetime and never touched the Tao of strength," he muttered to himself. I was just talking about basic cultivation principles. How did he reach that level just by listening to me? He started repeating his own lecture out loud, trying to find the hidden meaning he had apparently missed. The Tao is in the world, and it is within oneself. All things have a path. He closed his eyes, desperately trying to understand his own words the way I had. The old ancestor closed his eyes, focusing intently, but he felt absolutely nothing. He repeated the lines of his lecture again, his brow furrowing deeper with every word. Still, there was no resonance. He let out a long, heavy sigh. He couldn't understand why he couldn't feel the Tao of strength within his own teachings. What he didn't know was that my sudden enlightenment had nothing to do with his words. It was entirely thanks to the system's 10,000-fold return. I, however, had no intention of ever explaining that to him. Outside the stone room, my father, Gu Qingyun, was waiting for me. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking calm, but I could see a flicker of nerves in his eyes. He had no idea what the old ancestor was discussing with me. Just moments ago, a massive phantom had erupted from the room, piercing through the earth and the clouds until it stood tall between heaven and earth. It was a giant, a titan unlike anything he had ever seen. The sheer pressure from that phantom had made even a great emperor like my father feel a pang of dread. He wondered whose manifestation it was. There were only 2 people in that room, so the answer was obvious. After a while, the phantom faded, and the world returned to silence. The heavy doors finally groaned open. I walked out and hopped onto the back of my golden crow, flying straight toward my father. "Father," I greeted him. Gu Qingyun opened his mouth to speak, but the words seemed to fail him. He looked at me, stunned, before finally managing to ask, "That phantom just now, was that yours, Changsheng?" I nodded simply. "Yes." My father took a deep breath. He had suspected it, but hearing me confirm it was another thing entirely. I was only 5 years old. To manifest a vision that could make a great emperor tremble was unheard of. "What was it?" he asked. I thought for a second, trying to keep the explanation simple. During my meditation, I touched a fragment of the Tao of strength. That phantom was just its physical manifestation. The Tao of strength? My father's eyes widened. Among the 3,000 great Taos, that was the path of pure, unadulterated power. His 5-year-old son had reached enlightenment in the most direct path of all. He stood silent for a moment, then burst into a roar of laughter. "Ha! Good. My son truly has the talent to stand above the heavens. One day, you will transcend everything." I felt a bit embarrassed by the heavy praise and gave a sheepish smile. "Father, let's go back." "Right. Let's go home," he said with a wide sweep of his arm. He tore a rift in space and led me straight toward the Son of God mansion. The mansion was located in the eternal Tao territory of the Gu clan. It hadn't been used in a million years. The last time a Son of God had lived there was an eternity ago, and the seat had remained vacant until the old ancestor suddenly appointed me. As we landed in front of the gates, I looked up. The estate was massive, with layers of pavilions stretching as far as the eye could see. The black stone gates were nearly 100 feet tall, carved with ancient, intricate patterns. Above the door hung a plaque with 3 powerful words, "Son of God Mansion." The calligraphy was bold, radiating an aura of absolute calm. We pushed the gates open and stepped inside. The architecture was even more breathtaking up close. Roads paved with pure jade, golden halls, and towers that touched the clouds. Every detail screamed the heritage of an ancient clan. However, because it had been empty for so long, it felt a bit desolate. There were no servants, no guards, and even the spiritual herbs in the garden were growing wild. I didn't mind the quiet, but my father's brow furrowed. He wasn't annoyed by the lack of servants. He was annoyed by the air. He closed his eyes to sense the spiritual energy density and frowned. 20 times, he muttered, his voice dripping with dissatisfaction. Only 20 times the density of the outside world. For a normal cultivator, 20 times the spiritual energy would be a dream come true, a holy land for cultivation. But this was the Son of God mansion. This was where his son lived. I possessed the Finchen immortal body and the supreme bone, and I practiced the ancient immortal sutra. 20 times the energy was nowhere near enough for me. Just as my father was about to complain, he sensed something and looked up. Three figures were streaking across the sky at incredible speeds. One moment they were dots on the horizon, and the next they were hovering directly above us. They were three elderly men with white hair and beards, their auras as deep and vast as the ocean. They were all great emperors of the Gu clan. They stood in the air, smiling down at us. Behind them, they were collectively hauling a massive dragon vein. It was thousands of miles long, glowing a brilliant gold, and radiating terrifying levels of spiritual energy. Even though they had compressed it, the vein was so large it literally blotted out the sun, covering the sky for 10,000 miles around. My father looked up, his eyebrows twitching. The three elders landed and bowed slightly to him. Clan leader. Elders, you've worked hard, my father replied. One of the elders laughed and waved his hand. It was nothing, truly. He turned to me, his eyes full of pride. Son of God, the old ancestor really values you. The moment you were appointed, he sent the three of us out on an errand. Can you guess what it was? I looked at the giant, glowing dragon vein in the sky. Before I could say a word, the elder pointed at it. We went to find a private dragon vein, just for you. We're going to plant it right under this mansion to fuel your cultivation. We checked a few places and finally settled on this one. The quality is top tier, another elder added. It has enough energy to sustain you all the way until you reach the great emperor realm yourself. The third elder chimed in. And this vein is sentient. Once it's under the mansion, it will breathe and circulate energy on its own. You won't have to worry about a thing. I looked up at the sun-blocking golden dragon and felt my mouth twitch. They brought this entire thing just for one person? My father, however, was looking at the vein with a slight frown. As the clan leader, he knew every resource the Gu clan owned, and he didn't recognize this one. Elders, my father asked, where did this dragon vein come from? I don't recall the Gu clan having one like this. One of the elders laughed heartily. Oh, this isn't ours. It belonged to another sect. Another sect? My father repeated. The second elder nodded, his tone as casual as if he were talking about the weather. The three of us visited a certain power, and without saying a word, we just pulled their dragon vein out of the ground and left. What was their name again? The third elder wondered aloud. I forgot. Doesn't matter anyway. My mouth twitched again. They didn't even bother to remember the name of the people they robbed. This level of arrogance and dominance. Yeah, that was definitely the Gu clan style. Fortunately, I was the one on the winning side of that deal. My father didn't seem bothered at all. In his mind, if the Gu clan wanted something, they took it. If someone didn't like it, they fought. If they still didn't like it, they were wiped out. That sect is probably a wasteland now without their energy source, one elder remarked casually. He waved it off. Anyway, let's get to business. The three great emperors moved into a triangular formation around the golden vein. They began performing hand seals, throwing out golden runes that hit the dragon like chains. The vein began to shrink, from 10,000 miles to 1,000, then to 100. Finally, the massive energy source was compressed into a glowing golden orb about 10 miles wide. With a unified shout, the three elders pushed downward. Boom! The orb slammed into the earth, sinking deep into the foundations of the Son of God Mansion. The entire Son of God Mansion shuddered violently. Then, the spiritual energy began to skyrocket. 30 times, 50 times, 100 times, 200 times. The concentration of energy surged frantically until it finally slowed down at 500 times the density of the outside world. I took a deep breath. The thick spiritual energy flooded into my body, and my Finchen immortal body activated automatically, greedily devouring it all. It felt incredible. The three elders withdrew their hands and nodded with satisfaction. The task was done. The dragon vein was now sealed beneath the mansion and would circulate on its own. They told me I could now focus on my cultivation without worry. After bowing to my father, Gu Qingyun, the three great emperors vanished in a flash of light. Only my father and I remained in front of the mansion. He patted my shoulder and told me to go inside and practice hard. I nodded, hopped onto the golden crow's back, and flew into the estate with Empress Yaoguang following closely behind. My father stood outside, watching my back with a slight smile before turning to leave. He had more preparations to make for his son's future. I took a lap around the estate on the back of the Golden Crow. The place was massive, bigger than I had imagined. There was a front yard, a middle courtyard, and a backyard, totaling over 100 rooms. It had everything: martial arts fields, cultivation chambers, and spirit herb gardens. The only problem was that it felt empty. There was no life here. I finished my tour and headed back to the main hall. Just as I sat down, I heard a flurry of small footsteps outside. A large group of people was approaching. I walked out onto the steps and looked down. It was a sea of people, all women. They were young, beautiful, and dressed in matching cyan robes. Leading them was a kind-looking woman whose aura put her at the Saint Realm. In the lower realms, a powerhouse like her could wipe out entire sects single-handedly. Even in the 3,000 Dao states, she would be considered an ancestor-level figure. Yet here in the Gu clan, she was assigned as a headmate. It was a testament to the clan's terrifying foundations and how much they valued me. She bowed deeply. "Son of God, I am here by the clan leader's order. I have brought 10,000 maids to handle the affairs of your mansion." I looked at the 10,000 women standing there and felt my lips curl into a smile. 10,000 maids? My old man was clearly worried I'd get lonely. The woman began to break down their duties. 5,000 were for daily maintenance and cleaning. 3,000 were for the herb gardens. 1,000 were for the kitchens to prepare my meals. Another 1,000 were for sewing and maintaining my robes. Finally, there were 100 elite made specifically for my personal service. They were there to teach me everything I needed to know, including adult knowledge when the time came. "Greetings, Son of God." The 10,000 maids bowed in perfect unison, their voices crisp and sweet. I waved a hand, telling them to rise. They stood silently, waiting for orders. I looked at the lead woman and asked for her name. "This subordinate is named Su Wan," she replied respectfully. I told her she was in charge of the mansion's affairs and not to disturb me unless it was important. She bowed, and I headed back into the main hall. Inside, I sat cross-legged on a prayer mat. The Golden Crow perched on my shoulder, looking like a round, golden ball of fluff. Empress Yaguang wasn't there. After seeing my Panga manifestation earlier, she said she had gained a new insight and went off to find a place to meditate. I closed my eyes and felt the power within me. The supreme bone in my chest glowed faintly, emitting a domineering aura. This bone wasn't just for show. It increased my cultivation speed by dozens of times and could unleash devastating power in battle. I hadn't tested its full strength yet, but I could feel it waiting. The primordial immortal essence circulated through my meridians on its own. Spiritual energy poured into me constantly. I didn't even need to try. My body was getting stronger just by existing. The essence, the immortal body, and the supreme bone combined to give me a cultivation speed more than 100 times faster than a normal genius. I opened my eyes and looked at my small hands. I was 5 years old. It was too young. I couldn't go out and explore the world yet. I couldn't make up for the regrets of my previous life's single status yet. I couldn't do anything adult yet. All I could do was cultivate. I sighed. "Little bird, do you think I should go into seclusion?" The Golden Crow tilted its head and let out a chirp. "I think so too," I muttered. "I'll just stay in here until I'm an adult. 16. By then, I can do whatever I want." A knock sounded at the door. It was Su Wan. She entered carrying a spatial ring and presented it to me. "Son of God, these are your resources for the month." I took the ring and swept my consciousness inside. I froze. The space inside was massive, the size of dozens of rooms, and it was packed. There were piles of high-grade and peak-grade spirit stones, even a few spirit crystals. There were rows of top-tier pills for every purpose imaginable. There were heavenly herbs, none of which were less than 10,000 years old. There were even several high-level artifacts. I thought back to the treasures I had seen in my previous life, things I thought were amazing back then. Compared to this ring, those things were trash. No, they weren't even worth being called trash. I wouldn't even bother picking them up if I saw them on the ground. I dismissed Su Wan and toyed with the ring. I had the resources, the techniques, the physique, and the bones. I had everything. The only thing I lacked was time. "Little bird," I said, putting the ring on my finger. "I'm going into seclusion. Guard the door. Don't let anyone disturb me." The Golden Crow chirped, flew down, and sat at the entrance like a tiny, golden guardian deity. It looked harmless, but it was a terrifying primordial golden crow. Even an ordinary great emperor would think twice before crossing it. I took a deep breath and activated my techniques. Energy surged from the dragon vein below, flooding my body. My consciousness sank deep into meditation. I was going to stay here until I was 16. 11 years. When I finally walked out of this room, I wouldn't be a little kid anymore. I'd be ready for anything. Outside, Suwon watched the main hall. The doors were shut tight, guarded by the golden bird. She knew the son of God had begun his long sleep. She waved her hand, sending the maids back to their duties. The mansion fell silent, save for the rhythmic pulse of the dragon vein underground. 11 years is a lifetime for a mortal. It's the journey from a crying infant to a young man. But for an ancient family like the Gu clan, 11 years is just the blink of an eye. For the saint-level ancestors, it was nothing more than a momentary pause. For an immortal cultivator, a few thousand years can pass in a single meditation session. 11 years was nothing. It wasn't even long enough for a nap. During those 11 years, my mansion remained silent. My 10,000 maids performed their duties perfectly, keeping every corner of the estate pristine. Every month, Suwon delivered my cultivation resources to the main hall's entrance. She would set them down and leave immediately, never daring to disturb me. The little golden bird stayed at my door for all 11 years. It never moved, acting as a tiny, unwavering guardian. My father, Gu Qingyun, visited every few years, and my mother came by a few times as well. During my seclusion, the two children of destiny, out in the world, triggered a couple of choice events. Unfortunately, the opportunities they missed were garbage. The rewards I got back weren't world-shaking, just a top-tier spirit herb and a high-grade pill. For someone with my status, they were useless. I just tossed them into the golden crow's mouth like birdseed. Finally, after 11 years of silence, a crisp sound echoed from behind the hall doors. The golden crow snapped its head up. The doors creaked open. Sunlight flooded in, illuminating the prayer mats and incense burners inside. A tall, slender figure stepped out from the shadows. At 16 years old, I stood at the threshold and squinted, adjusting to the long-lost daylight. I wore a simple white robe, my black hair falling loosely around my shoulders. My golden pupils were deeper and more piercing than they had been a decade ago. The baby fat was gone, replaced by sharp, handsome features and broad shoulders. As I prepared to step out, I heard familiar footsteps. My father was walking toward the hall. He visited every few years, and today, he happened to time it perfectly. When he saw me standing there, the great clan leader froze in his tracks. "Changshan," he whispered. I looked up and smiled. "Father." Gu Qingyun walked closer, scanning me from head to toe. He looked back and forth, his eyes filled with surprise, relief, and an undeniable sense of pride. "You've grown up," he said, patting my shoulder. The little toddler who used to cling to him now reached his chin. He took a half-step back, his brow furrowing. He instinctively sent out his divine sense to check my cultivation level. It was like throwing a stone into a bottomless ocean. He felt nothing. "No need to check, Father," I said with a smile. With an immortal body and immortal essence, no one below the level of an immortal can see through me. Gu Qingyun was stunned. "Then, what is your current realm?" I thought about it for a second. "The fifth realm. The Tianyuan realm." My father went rigid. The Tianyuan realm at 16? He remembered his own youth. He had been the greatest genius of his generation, and at 16, he had barely touched the threshold of the Shinkei realm. The clan had hailed him as a once-in-10,000 years talent. But his son was 16 and already in the Tianyuan realm, a full major realm higher than he had been. In cultivation, every step forward gets exponentially harder. That was an iron rule. "The fifth realm," Gu Qingyun muttered. He started to laugh softly, unable to hide the pride in his eyes. "Your grandfather told me my talent was world-capping. I actually believed him. Looking at you now, my talent was nothing. I didn't brag. I just smiled. My father was a monster-level talent to become the clan leader. He just didn't have a broken system like I did." He took a deep breath to calm his emotions, but before he could speak, a heavy sound boomed. Dong! A bell rang out from the Gu clan's ancestral lands. The sound was deep and ancient, rippling like water over the rooftops and mountain peaks. Dong. A second strike. Dong. A third. Gu Qingyun looked toward the source of the sound and laughed. I actually came here because the secret realm opens today. It only happens once every 10 years. He turned back to me. The Gu clan's secret realm. Every disciple between the ages of 15 and 30 must participate. It's meant to stop people from just meditating their lives away. You need to hone yourself in real combat. I tilted my head. What's inside? Vicious beasts, dangerous lands, and opportunities, he said, patting my shoulder again. You'll see when you get there. I looked at the golden crow on my shoulder and then toward the bell. I understand, father. Let's go. I started walking toward the main clan hall. My father stayed behind for a moment, watching my back. My white robes fluttered in the wind, my pace calm and my spine straight. 16 years old and already in the Tianyuan realm. He suddenly felt that the Gu clan truly had a chance to return to its ancient peak. Across the estate, every young disciple looked up at the sound of the 3 bells. The secret realm was opening. They had waited 10 years for this. The secret realm provided real-world experience. You killed beasts to earn points. The higher the points, the higher your ranking. High-ranking disciples received massive resources, and the best performers could even be promoted to Saint's Son. While there was only one Son of God, me, there could be multiple Saint Sons. It was a position of immense status that every young genius dreamed of. Inside the main hall, hundreds of disciples had already gathered. They ranged from 15 to nearly 30. The weakest were in the Lingtai realm, while the strongest were already in the Shinkei realm. They were buzzing with excitement. I'm definitely breaking into the top 10 this time, one shouted. Top 10? Have some ambition. I'm going for the top 3. You? You're only at the 8th stage of the Lingtai realm. Dream on. So what? My combat skills are top tier. Quiet down. Do you even know what's in there? The beasts start at the Lingtai realm, but there are Shinkei and even Tianyuan level monsters. Tianyuan? If you run into one of those, you're dead. Then run. Who told you to fight it? True. How do the points work again? 1 point for a Lingtai beast. 10 for a Shinkei. 100 for a Tianyuan. Man, if I could kill just one Tianyuan beast, I'd skyrocket to the top. Try staying alive first. The crowd erupted in laughter, but then the light from the entrance dimmed. Someone was walking in. Everyone instinctively turned to look, and the hall went dead silent. A young man entered. He looked about 16, tall and lean. His black hair was tied back with a golden ribbon, a few stray strands framing a face as smooth as jade. His golden eyes were deep and brilliant. He wore a white robe with a golden belt, and a round, fluffy golden bird sat on his shoulder like a ball of yarn. He had a faint smile on his face as he walked in. The female disciple's eyes went wide. Who is that? He's so handsome. Wait, look at his eyes. They're gold. Golden pupils. It's the Son of God. It's Gu Changshen. The hall exploded. The Son of God is out of seclusion. It's been 11 years. I almost forgot what he looked like. He was just a little kid back then. Look at him now. Greetings, Son of God. The crowd bowed in unison. I nodded, smiling at them. Long time no see. My voice was clear and warm. The girls looked like they were about to faint. I walked to the front of the hall and found a spot to stand. People instinctively backed away, giving me plenty of space. It wasn't out of fear, but pure reverence. My status was equal to the clan ancestors, after all. In the middle of the crowd, a man around 27 years old stood with his head bowed. His name was Gu Yen. Gu Yen was the undisputed strongest member of the Gu clan's younger generation. At 28 years old, he had reached the 7th level of the God Deficiency realm. In the lower realms, he would be considered a supreme powerhouse, but here, he was simply the top talent among his peers. His goal for this trial was clear. He wanted first place. I felt Gu Yan's gaze on my back. His eyes flickered with curiosity as he tried to probe my cultivation level, but he found nothing. He frowned, pulled back his spiritual sense, and remained silent, though I could tell he was already calculating his moves. A lean, gray-robed elder stepped onto the high platform. His eyes were sharp, like burning torches. I recognized him immediately. He was the Saint Realm elder who had presided over my bloodline awakening years ago. He scanned the hall and nodded. Everyone is here, he announced. The secret realm is about to open. Listen to the rules. The hall fell silent. The realm is filled with fierce beasts, the elder continued. The weakest are in the spirit terrace realm, and the strongest reach the heavenly yuan realm. Killing a spirit terrace beast earns you 1 point. A god deficiency beast is worth 10. A heavenly yuan beast is worth 100. The top 10 scorers will receive rewards, and the first place winner will get an extra prize. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Guyan's lips curled into a confident smile. He was determined to win. Even though I had broken through to the third realm at age 5, Guyan had a 12-year head start. He possessed the heavenly tyrant body and was famous for fighting opponents far above his own level. Furthermore, the elder added, the most outstanding performers have a chance to be promoted to the rank of Saint Child. There is no limit on the number of spots. If you perform well enough, anyone can become a Saint Child. The excitement reached a fever pitch. The position of Saint Child was second only to mine. It meant a massive jump in status and resources. The elder gave one final warning. No killing your own kin. Violators will be expelled from the clan. That is all. Then, he looked at me with a hint of expectation. Son of God, do you have anything to say? I shook my head. No. The elder nodded and waved his hand. Open the realm. Space itself tore open at the front of the hall, revealing a massive, glowing portal. High above the Gu clan, hidden deep in the void, 4 figures sat cross-legged. They were completely hidden, their auras blending into the world. 3 were clan ancestors, and 1 was my father, Gu Qingyun. All 4 were great emperors. Usually, a secret realm trial might attract 1 great emperor to watch. Having 4, including the clan leader, was unheard of. If the disciples knew, they would have been too nervous to move. But these 4 weren't here for the masses. They were here for me. Strange, one ancestor whispered, his voice raspy with age. I've lived for eons, yet I cannot see through Changshan's cultivation. Qingyun, did you use some trick to hide him from us? My father shook his head. You joke, ancestor. My son possesses an immortal body and a supreme bone. He cultivates using immortal essence. How could we, mere great emperors, easily spy on that? The ancestors nodded. It made sense. One stroked his beard, his eyes gleaming. After 11 years of seclusion, I wonder how far the boy has truly come. We're about to find out, the third ancestor replied. I stepped through the portal and found myself standing on a vast, desolate plain. The sky was a hazy gray, bright despite the lack of a sun. The air smelled of ancient, wild earth. Since the teleportation was random, I was alone, at least for a few seconds. Flashes of light erupted around me. 4 young men appeared nearby. They looked to be in their early 20s, mostly around the 5th or 6th level of the Spirit Terrace realm. When they saw me, their eyes lit up. The Son of God. We were transported with the Son of God. They scrambled to bow. Greetings, Son of God. No need for formalities, I said, waving them off. They stood up, buzzing with energy. A round-faced youth, bolder than the rest, spoke up. Son of God, do you know the layout of this realm? I don't, I admitted. I've been in seclusion. Then we can be of use, he said eagerly. We've studied this place. We know where the best treasures and high-level beasts are hidden. Please, let us follow you. I thought about it for a moment. Having guides was better than wandering aimlessly. Fine. The 4 of them nearly jumped for joy. Where to first, Son of God? Where are the strongest beasts? I asked. The round-faced youth thought for a second, his eyes widening. I know a place. There's a cave nearby with a god deficiency beast. It's only a short walk away. Plus, there's a 10,000-year-old grade 7 spirit herb growing right outside the entrance. It should be right by now. Lead the way, I said. Half an hour later, we reached the foot of a mountain. A massive, pitch-black cave yawned in the rock face. Right outside, a snow-white lingji mushroom the size of a washbasin glowed softly. The round-faced youth stared at it, drooling. It's really ripe. He took 2 steps forward, then froze. A dozen black, wolf-like beasts, each as large as a bull, were guarding the entrance. They were all in the Spirit Terrace realm, their green eyes locked onto us. But from deep within the cave, a much more terrifying pressure drifted out. The youth turned pale. This isn't right. My cousin said the beast inside was only at the 4th level of the god deficiency realm. This feels like the 8th, maybe even the 9th level. The others looked terrified. A 9th level god deficiency beast was stronger than Guyen, the clan's top genius. They were just spirit terrace cultivators. They'd be slaughtered. Son of God, the youth stammered. Maybe we should pick another spot? This one is too dangerous. I looked at the cave and smiled. You handle the ones outside. The one inside is mine. They stared at me, stunned. The round-faced youth wanted to argue, but when he looked into my golden eyes, he swallowed his words. Yes, son of God. They charged the wolves. High above in the void, the 4 great emperors watched closely. One ancestor frowned. That beast, 50 years ago, it was only at the 4th level. How did it break through so quickly? Something is strange. Another ancestor nodded, his brow furrowed. A beast at the 8th or 9th level of the god deficiency realm was no joke. It was a difficult opponent for anyone. I was only 16 years old, and I had spent the last 11 years in secluded cultivation. I had never been in a real life-and-death struggle. The ancestors wondered if I could actually handle this. They all turned to look at my father, Gu Qingyun. He simply smiled, looking completely relaxed. Seeing his expression, the ancestors felt a bit more at ease. My father had absolute confidence in me. He knew I could end this with a single strike. High above in the void, the ancestors watched the secret realm intently. They didn't argue with my father, but I could see the doubt lingering in their eyes. 16 years old, no combat experience, facing a peak god deficiency beast? Even with an immortal body and supreme bones, talent didn't always equal victory. They thought I was still too young. Back in the secret realm, I floated silently in the air. Below me, the 4 Gu clan disciples were locked in a fierce battle with the wolf-like beasts. It was a chaotic mess of spirit terrace experts clashing against one another. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the area. The boulders at the cave entrance shattered into dust. A colossal shadow lunged out. It was a bear, over 30 feet tall, with fur as black as night and eyes glowing blood red. Its claws were longer than swords, and every step it took made the ground tremble. It was at the 9th level of the god deficiency realm. The pressure it emitted was even stronger than we had anticipated. The 4 disciples turned pale and scrambled backward. Son of God, be careful, one screamed. This beast is at least 9th level. The black bear ignored them at first, its eyes locking onto the 100,000-year-old Lingji mushroom. Then, it looked at the wolves and the disciples. Finally, it tilted its massive head back and saw me floating in the sky. It let out a deafening roar. This was its territory. The mushroom was its prize. These humans had to die. The bear lunged. Its massive body soared through the air toward me. It swung a paw, creating a localized hurricane. The wind pressure was so intense that the trees and grass below were flattened. The 4 disciples were blown back, their faces white with terror. This was the true power of a peak god deficiency beast. I watched the bear fly toward me. My expression didn't change. I didn't draw a weapon. I simply raised my right hand and clenched it into a fist. Then I punched. It was a simple, direct strike. There was no flashy spiritual energy, no grand visions in the sky. There was only pure, raw power, the power of the Tao of strength. Our attacks collided. A sickening crack echoed through the clearing. It was the sound of bone shattering. The bear's massive paw was pierced through like it was made of wet paper. My fist didn't slow down. It kept moving forward until it slammed directly into the bear's forehead. Time seemed to freeze for a split second. Then, the bear's massive body went flying backward like a kite with a broken string. It smashed through a mountain peak, snapped trees like toothpicks, and tumbled across the ground for dozens of yards before coming to a dead stop. A deep fist print was embedded in its skull. Blood leaked from its eyes, nose, and mouth. One punch. A 9th-level god deficiency beast was dead. The 4 disciples stood frozen. Their mouths hung open, eyes bulging. They couldn't process what they had just seen. A beast that strong, killed in a single hit? The round-faced youth's jaw practically hit his chest. He tried to speak, but only stammers came out. One of the other disciples just sat down on the dirt, stunned. They felt like they could die happy just having witnessed that. Outside the secret realm, The four great emperors were silent. After a long moment, one ancestor finally spoke. One punch. Another took a deep breath. A ninth-level god deficiency beast, killed instantly. Just how high has this child's cultivation reached? The third ancestor shook his head, his eyes wide. I can't see through him. I truly can't. They all looked at my father. He couldn't hide his smug grin. He shrugged his shoulders. I told you. One strike is all it takes. The ancestors didn't say a word, but the doubt in their eyes was gone. It was replaced by shock, joy, and an excitement they couldn't describe. After so many years, was the Gu clan finally producing a second legendary figure to rule the heavens? Inside the realm, I lowered my fist. I looked at my hand and shook my head slightly. Not as strong as I thought. I muttered. My voice was flat, as if I were talking about the weather. In reality, my cultivation had already reached the fifth realm, the Tianyuan realm. Facing a god deficiency beast was like a professional fighter stepping into a ring with a toddler. If it wasn't on my way, I wouldn't have even bothered stopping here. The four disciples heard me, and their faces twitched. Not strong. A ninth-level beast was harder to deal with than a 10th-level human cultivator. You usually needed to be in the Tianyuan realm just to stand a chance. That meant I was already a Tianyuan expert at 16. I landed on the ground, walked to the glowing Lingji mushroom, and plucked it. I tossed it casually to the round-faced youth. Keep it. He scrambled to catch it, looking like he'd lost his mind. 100,000-year Lingji? For me? Son of God, this is too valuable. I can't take this. I waved him off. I have no use for it. It was the truth. With the resources the clan gave me, this mushroom was trash. My storage ring was already overflowing with better things. The other three looked at the youth with burning envy, wishing they had his luck. I ignored them and looked at my identity token. A number appeared, 10 points. On the leaderboard for the secret realm, my name instantly jumped to the top. Gu Changsheng, 10 points. Second place, Gu Yin, 1 point. I hadn't even been in the realm for 15 minutes, and I was already leading. Elsewhere in the forest, Gu Yin retracted his palm. A spirit terrace beast collapsed in front of him, kicking up a cloud of dust. He shook out his wrist and checked his token. His brow furrowed. Gu Changsheng, 10 points. 10 points meant a god deficiency kill. The trial had barely started. A tall disciple behind him leaned in to look. How did he do that so fast? It's not just finding one, the tall disciple said, shaking his head. It's killing it. Even a first-level god deficiency beast isn't easy. And the son of God is only 16. Gu Yin tucked his token into his belt and looked west. 10 years ago, I visited this place. There's a stone forest to the west where an 8th-level fire spirit beast lives. There are plenty of smaller beasts there too. I'll handle the fire spirit. The rest are yours. Take what points you can. His followers' eyes lit up as they hurried after him. As they moved deeper into the woods, the light dimmed. Gu Yin checked his token again. My score had changed. 30 points. He stopped in his tracks, his eyelid twitching. 30 points meant 3 god deficiency kills. And the jump from 10 to 30 had happened in less than 15 minutes. 30 points. Someone whispered behind him, their voice trembling. They realized they weren't just watching a genius. They were watching a monster. The god deficiency beasts in this secret realm weren't exactly standing in a neat line waiting to be slaughtered. Just traveling between them took time. Unless, of course, a person wasn't being picky at all. Someone who just killed whatever they saw and moved on instantly. But even then, you had to actually find them. Gu Yin didn't join the frantic discussion behind him. He stood still for a few seconds, silent, then abruptly turned and headed in a completely different direction. Brother Yin. The tall disciple froze, looking confused. The stone forest isn't that way. I know. Gu Yin replied without stopping. His voice drifted back as he picked up the pace. That fire spirit beast in the stone forest is only worth 10 points. Gu Changsheng is already at 30. Even if I take that beast down, the gap is too wide. He moved faster now, weaving through the dense foliage. Then where are we going? Gu Yin didn't answer directly. He led the group through the thick woods and over a low ridge, finally stopping at the mouth of a hidden valley. The entrance was choked with jagged rocks. Dark red vines crawled across the cliffs like dried bloodstains. I was here 10 years ago, Gu Yin said, his gaze darkening as he peered into the depths. There's a first-level heaven origin beast living in this valley. Back then, I hid as far away as possible. I didn't dare get close, but I saw it. Heaven origin. The tall disciple's voice cracked. It was wounded, Guyen added. It had fought another beast and was badly hurt. 50 years have passed, but a wound like that doesn't heal easily. He glanced back at his followers. Wait here. I'm going in alone. Without waiting for a response, he stepped into the valley. Deep inside, a massive creature lay curled under a giant boulder. It looked like a lizard, covered in grayish-green scales, stretching nearly 30 feet from head to tail. Its front left leg was shriveled. A deep, old scar split the scales there, revealing dark, raw flesh beneath. Sensing an intruder, the beast slowly lifted its head. Its vertical pupils glinted with cold light as a low growl vibrated in its throat. Guyen didn't waste words. He lunged forward, turning into a blur of motion as he targeted the beast's left side, the side with the injured leg. He pushed his heavenly tyrant body to its absolute limit. Faint golden patterns emerged on his skin like ancient, glowing runes. His blood boiled with power. Every step he took left a shallow crater in the earth. He threw a punch. The air hissed under the pressure. The beast lashed out with its tail, swinging it like a massive iron whip. Guyen didn't dodge. He slammed his fist directly into the tip of the tail. The impact was deafening. The beast's tail was knocked aside, but Guyen was thrown back 3 steps. His right fist went numb. The golden light of his tyrant body flickered for a second, then stabilized. He charged again. His fists fell like rain. Every strike hit the scales with the sound of clashing steel. Scales shattered. Dark red blood sprayed. The beast roared in agony, fighting back with everything it had, claws, teeth, and that heavy tail. Guyen dodged what he could and tanked what he couldn't. The golden light around him wavered under the assault, but he refused to retreat. Outside the valley, the disciples watched from a distance, their hearts hammering against their ribs. 15 minutes passed. The beast's movements finally slowed. That old injury on its front leg couldn't take the strain anymore. With a sickening crack, the bone snapped. The massive body slumped to one side. Guyen had been waiting for this exact moment. He dived in, driving a fist straight into the open wound on the leg. The golden energy of the heavenly tyrant body poured into the beast's internals and exploded. With one final, piercing shriek, the creature collapsed. Guyen pulled his fist back, gasping for air. His right sleeve was shredded to ribbons. The veins in his forearm bulged and trembled. He had won. He looked up, ready to deliver the killing blow, when the ground suddenly shuddered. It wasn't the impact of the fallen beast. This vibration came from deeper within the valley. It was heavier. Darker. Guyen spun around. 2 clusters of sickly green light ignited in the darkness. Eyes. They were larger and brighter than the ones he had just faced. A massive silhouette emerged slowly from the shadows. It looked identical to the beast on the ground, but it was an entire size larger, over 40 feet long. Its scales were a deep emerald green, shimmering with a ghostly luster. Its aura was on a completely different level. Guyen's pupils shrank. 6th level heaven origin. The new beast didn't even look at its fallen kin. Its green eyes were locked onto Guyen. It opened its maw. The roar shook the entire valley. Rocks tumbled from the cliffs. At the valley entrance, the disciples were knocked off their feet by the sheer pressure of the sound. What level is that? One stammered. I can't even sense it. It's too strong. Guyen gritted his teeth. The golden light of his tyrant body flared up again, brighter and more piercing than before. He took a step forward, meeting the beast head-on. The beast slammed a claw down. Guyen crossed his arms to block. The golden light shivered violently under the weight. He was sent sliding backward, his feet carving 2 long trenches into the dirt. Before he could even steady himself, the beast's tail whipped around. He hit the valley wall with a sickening thud, leaving a human-shaped crater in the rock. He struggled to his feet, a thin trail of blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. The golden glow of his tyrant body had dimmed, but it was still burning. The disciples at the entrance tried to rush in to help, but the beast glanced at them. That single look pinned them to the spot. Their legs shook. Their hands trembled. They couldn't even gather their spiritual energy. They were useless. Outside the secret realm, deep in the void, the eyes of the four great emperors were fixed on the valley. Sixth level heaven origin, one ancestor muttered, his brow furrowing. This realm was cleared 10 years ago. Where did a sixth level beast come from? It must have had a lucky breakthrough recently. Another replied, stroking his beard. This creature has quite the fortune. Should we intervene? They all looked at the fourth emperor, a lean, white-haired old man. He was Gu Yan's direct ancestor. He watched as Gu Yan crawled out of the crater in the wall. No need, the old man said calmly. Yenner possesses the heavenly tyrant body. He can handle a little pressure like this. The other three exchanged looks, but said nothing. Being able to handle it and being able to win were two very different things. In another part of the secret realm, I was moving through a field of jagged rocks with my four followers. Any spirit terrace beasts that jumped out were handled by the others before I even had to look at them. Occasionally, a god deficiency beast would appear, and I'd end it with a single punch. My points had climbed to 30. The round-faced youth behind me was grinning so wide his face hurt. His score was rising right along with mine. Suddenly, I stopped. I looked toward the horizon. A faint vibration was echoing from that direction. My followers felt it a moment later. That aura. The tall disciple's face went pale. Heaven origin. My eyes lit up. Since entering this place, I'd been dropping god deficiency beasts with one hit. It wasn't even a warm-up. I'd been looking for something I could actually put some effort into. Now I'd found it. Wait here, I said. Before the words had even fully landed, I was gone, moving like a bolt of lightning across the landscape. I disappeared behind the rocks in a heartbeat. The round-faced youth stood there with his mouth open, trying to find words. Is the Son of God going to fight that? Isn't it obvious? The tall one snapped, rolling his eyes. That heaven origin aura is massive. He's definitely going to challenge it. Should we follow him? They looked at each other, but nobody moved. A fight at the heaven origin level? They'd be nothing but cannon fodder. They decided to stay put. Deep in the valley, Gu Yan was down on one knee. The sleeve on Gu Yan's right arm was shredded into bloody rags. Blue veins bulged across his forearm, and his fingers were trembling uncontrollably. A thin trail of blood leaked from the corner of his mouth, dripping onto the jagged rocks below. The golden light of his tyrant body was flickering, dimming like a candle about to be snuffed out by the wind. Standing before him was a massive beast at the 6th level of the heaven origin realm. It moved toward him slowly, each heavy step shaking the ground and sending pebbles dancing. Its eerie green eyes were locked onto Gu Yan, a low growl vibrating in its throat as a foul, metallic stench filled the air. Gu Yan grit his teeth, trying to stand. His legs buckled. His knees hit the dirt again. He couldn't do it. The gap in their cultivation was simply too wide. He was only at the god deficiency stage, facing an opponent an entire realm above him. No matter how powerful his tyrant body was or how elite his techniques were, they couldn't bridge a chasm that vast. He had reached his absolute limit. The beast unhinged its jaw. A dark, ominous light began to swirl deep in its throat, locking onto Gu Yan for the killing blow. Just as it was about to fire, a figure descended from the sky. White robes fluttered in the wind, and dark hair whipped around a calm face as I landed directly between Gu Yan and the monster. Gu Yan looked up, staring at my back. I stood there, tall and steady, my white robes spotless despite the chaos. Son of God, he managed to gasp. I glanced back at him, my eyes lingering on his wounds and the fading golden glow of his physique. I walked over and patted his shoulder. Your tyrant body is impressive, I said, my voice as casual as if I were commenting on the weather. If you were at the heaven origin realm, you could have handled this beast yourself. You're just lacking cultivation right now. I pulled my hand back and turned toward the monster. Watch how I do it. Gu Yan's brow furrowed. He opened his mouth to warn me that the beast's scales were nearly impenetrable, even for heaven origin experts. But the words died in his throat. All he could say was, "Be careful, son of God. Its hide is incredibly tough." I didn't stop walking. I didn't even look back. I just let out a short laugh. Then, I released my suppression. The aura of the second level of the Heaven Origin realm exploded from my body, sweeping through the valley like a tidal wave. The air grew heavy. The rocks on the ground began to levitate. Guyan's pupils shrank. Heaven Origin, second level? He froze. He was 16, and he was already at the second level of the Heaven Origin realm? He forgot the pain of his injuries, completely stunned. It shouldn't have been possible. In the Gu clan, a 16-year-old reaching the God Deficiency stage was considered a top-tier genius. Most were still struggling in the lower Spirit Terrace ranks. Even Gu Yan, labeled a once-in-a-century talent, had only been at the 9th level of Spirit Terrace at that age. I was an entire realm ahead of where he had been. He wanted to speak, but his throat was dry. Outside the secret realm, deep in the void, the 4 ancestors were watching the valley. One of them widened his eyes slightly. Second level of the Heaven Origin realm, the ancestor noted. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed his shock. 16 years old. We don't have anyone under 30 at that level. No other godly clan does either. Gu Qingyun couldn't hide his smirk. He let out a soft, proud laugh. Like father, like son. The other 3 ancestors turned to look at him simultaneously. Their silent stares said everything. You were strong in your day, Qingyun, but compared to your son, you weren't even close. Back in the valley, I hovered in midair. The wind caught my hair, revealing my calm expression. My golden pupils reflected the monster's massive form. Opposite me, the beast sensed the shift. It felt the danger. It knew the human in front of it was far more dangerous than the one before. The beast roared, its dark green scales shimmering with a cold, oily luster. It opened its mouth wide and unleashed a pillar of black light straight at my face. I didn't dodge. I raised my right hand, palm open. A faint golden light coated my skin. When the black beam hit my palm, it shattered and sprayed outward like water hitting a solid rock. The beast's eyes went wide. I pulled my hand back and checked my palm. It felt slightly warm. That was all. My turn, I whispered. I clenched my fist. The golden flames of my Finchen immortal body erupted, wrapping around my entire right arm. The supreme bone in my chest began to glow, sending golden runes crawling under my skin and down to my knuckles. Behind me, a massive phantom began to solidify, a flaming giant with 3 heads and 6 arms, wreathed in divine fire. Each head had 3 eyes, and the 6 arms held phantoms of different weapons, a blade, a sword, a spear, a halberd, a hammer, and a seal. This was the Dharma image of the Finchen immortal body. The giant towered over the valley, its head touching the clouds. Golden divine flames poured off it like a waterfall, turning the valley walls red-hot and incinerating every blade of grass instantly. Compared to this avatar, the massive beast looked like a tiny ant. It finally felt true terror. It began to back away, its claws scraping desperately against the dirt as it tried to retreat. I didn't give it the chance. I threw a punch. It was a simple, direct strike. But contained within that punch was the essence of the Finchen immortal body, the runic power of the supreme bone, and a hint of the law of strength. The flaming giant behind me mirrored the movement, its massive fist falling like a collapsing sun. The beast let out a desperate shriek, firing its black beam to try and block the hit. It was useless. My fist smashed into its head, and its scales shattered like wet paper. Flesh sprayed, bones snapped, and the roar was cut short instantly. The 30-foot body was hammered deep into the earth, creating a massive crater. A mushroom cloud of dust and debris shot into the sky. The valley groaned under the pressure, cracks spreading across the cliff walls like a spiderweb. When the dust settled, the beast was motionless. Its head was crushed flat, its scales were scattered, and dark red blood filled the pit. It was dead in a single hit. I pulled my fist back and stayed suspended in the air. The flaming giant faded away, and the golden heat began to recede. Silence returned to the valley, broken only by the sound of falling pebbles. The token at my waist chimed. 100 points added. Combined with my previous 30, I was sitting at 130 points. On the leaderboard, my name sat at the very top. The person in second place didn't even have a fraction of my score. Guyan stood there, his jaw hanging open. He had just watched the monster that nearly killed him get deleted with a single punch. No, It wasn't even a full effort. The power he had felt from that strike made his heart cold even from a distance. He looked down at his broken body, then at the cooling corpse in the pit. He let out a bitter, helpless laugh. And I actually thought I could compare myself to the Son of God, he muttered to himself. I was just a mayfly looking up at the endless sky. The beast that had nearly killed Gu Yin was nothing more than a warm-up for me. No, it wasn't even a fight. It was just one punch. I was only 16 years old, at the second level of the Tianyuan realm. Gu Yin was nearly 30 and had reached the 7th level of the Shinkei realm. The gap between us wasn't just wide, it was an abyss. If the difference had been small, he might have felt bitter or tried to catch up. But when the gap is this vast, you don't even try to compete. You just accept it. I drifted down from the air and landed in front of him. My white robes weren't even wrinkled. It looked like I had just gone for a casual stroll. Guyan took a deep breath and struggled to stand. His body was still screaming in pain, and his legs were shaking, but he gritted his teeth and stood straight. Then, he bowed deeply to me. "Greetings, Son of God," he said. This bow was different from before. It was filled with genuine respect. The Son of God is truly the #1 talent of our Gu family's younger generation. I looked at him and gave a casual wave of my hand. "Go heal your injuries. The trial isn't over yet." Guyan nodded and stood up. As he watched me walk away, the last bit of rivalry in his heart vanished. He realized he shouldn't be comparing himself to me. He needed a new goal, someone he actually had a chance of surpassing. Outside the secret realm, deep in the void, the 4 emperors pulled their gazes away from the valley. One of the ancestors stroked his beard, a smile tugging at his lips. A single punch had killed a beast at the 6th level of the Tianyuan realm. The monster hadn't even had a chance to fight back. Another ancestor nodded in agreement. The Finchen immortal body, the supreme bone, and that immortal scripture. When you stack those 3 things together, calling him invincible among his peers is an understatement. Crossing levels to kill enemies is just a game to him. 16 years old, 2nd level of the Tianyuan realm, the 3rd ancestor remarked. In all my years, I've never seen such a monster. They showered me with praise, and my father, Gu Qingyun, couldn't hide the pride on his face. However, one of the ancestors, Gu Tianxing, suddenly frowned. He was one of the oldest emperors in the family and had overseen the trial 10 years ago. "Something is wrong," Gu Tianxing said, his voice laced with suspicion. The others turned to him. He stroked his beard slowly. "Have you noticed? The beasts in the secret realm are much stronger than they were 10 years ago." He paused to let that sink in. 10 years ago, the strongest beast was only at the 1st level of the Tianyuan realm. But this time, first, there was that black bear. 50 years ago, it was only at the 4th level of the Shinkei realm, but now it's at the 8th or 9th. Then there's this lizard beast. It wasn't even here 10 years ago, and now it's at the 6th level of the Tianyuan realm. One beast breaking through is luck. 2 beasts breaking through this much? That's suspicious. The smiles faded from the other ancestors' faces. They thought back and realized he was right. A 6th level Tianyuan beast shouldn't even exist here. This realm was designed for disciples under 30, meaning the cap was usually the Shinkei realm. If I hadn't been there today, any other disciple who ran into that lizard would be dead. Gu Tianxing looked at my father. "Qingyun, you're the clan leader. The secret realm is under your jurisdiction. What is going on?" The other 2 ancestors stared at him, waiting for an answer. My father didn't look worried at all. He just gave a faint smile. "Ancestors, please, just keep watching." Gu Tianxing's brow furrowed. "Keep watching? What if another disciple meets a beast like that and dies?" My father's voice remained calm. "This secret realm is under my control." He looked toward the depths of the realm, his eyes sharpening. "I want to see who exactly dares to play tricks in front of the Gu family." He let out a light laugh, full of absolute confidence. He wasn't bothered by the anomalies at all. The 3 ancestors exchanged looks and shook their heads, but they didn't push further. They knew my father well. Back in his day, his reputation was second only to mine. He wasn't just talented, he was brilliant. If he said he had it under control, then he did. Back in the valley, I stood by the edge of the crater. The giant beast was cold and dead. The token at my waist showed 130 points. I was leading by a mile. Guyan had retreated to the side to swallow some pills and start healing. His injuries were bad, but his body had incredible recovery speed. As long as he wasn't dead, he'd bounce back soon. I was about to leave the valley when a familiar mechanical voice rang in my head. Ding! Destiny Child Xiaochen detected. Triggering life choice. I stopped in my tracks. Finally, it had been 11 years. In all that time, I'd only triggered 2 choices, and the rewards hadn't been anything special. But now he was back. I found a clean spot to sit down and let my consciousness sink into the system. A translucent panel appeared before me, showing a scene only I could see. The image showed the lower realm, the Songyun realm. It was a small city, barely a few dozen miles across. It looked busy enough, though. A stone tablet at the gate bore 3 words, Wutan City. My mouth twitched when I saw the name. Wutan City? Of course. The classic starting point. I watched as the camera zoomed in on a main street toward a building much larger than the shops around it. A golden sign hung over the door, Wutan Auction House. A figure in a large black cloak was walking through the side entrance. The hood hid most of his face, leaving only his chin visible. He didn't look old, but his stride was steady. It was Xiaochen. 11 years had passed since he lost his Saint Bone. Life hadn't been easy for him. He had been scraping by in this backwater city using his basic alchemy skills. He chose this place because it was small and remote. Nobody cared about a random alchemist here. Over those 11 years, his cultivation had risen from the Juechen realm to the 4th level of the Tongxian realm. In the lower realm, that wasn't slow. But I knew that if I hadn't stolen his opportunities, he would be at the 8th or 9th level by now, maybe even higher. Xiaochen walked through the auction house corridors. Usually, a young servant would meet him to take his pills for appraisal, keep things simple, and hand over the gold. But today was different. At the end of the hallway, a woman was waiting for him. She looked to be in her late 20s, wearing a pale purple qipao that hugged every curve of her body. The slit in the skirt went up to her thigh, showing off her pale skin. Her black hair was pinned up with a jade hairpin, and her eyes were filled with a soft, lingering charm. She stood there like a blooming peony, elegant, wealthy, and incredibly alluring. Xiaochen's footsteps faltered for a second. He had been in Wutan City for 11 years, but he had never seen this woman before. "Sir, thank you for waiting," she said. Her voice was soft, not too sweet, with a comfortable, magnetic quality to it. "My name is Luo Fei. I'm the chief auctioneer of this house." She bowed slightly. The collar of her qipao opened just enough to reveal a sliver of snow-white skin. Xiaochen's eyes drifted downward uncontrollably. He swallowed hard. Realizing what he was doing, he quickly looked away, cursing himself internally for being so pathetic. He had spent the last 11 years wandering mountains or hiding in alchemy rooms. He could count the number of women he'd seen on one hand. Suddenly facing someone this beautiful was more than he could handle. But he knew he needed to keep a low profile. He couldn't afford to cause trouble or expose his identity. "Miss Luo Fei," Xiaochen said, his voice raspy and low. He was intentionally masking his natural tone. "Here are my pills for this month. Take a look." He pulled a cloth bag from under his cloak and handed it over. Luo Fei took it but didn't open it. She just set it aside. "Sir, there's no rush," she said, smiling at him with an evaluating look in her eyes. "Actually, I've been observing you for a long time." Xiaochen's body tensed. "You've been coming here to sell pills every month for 10 years. Luo Fei continued at a steady pace. "The pills you refine are high grade and the quality is incredibly stable. In a place like Wutan City, there aren't more than 3 people capable of this." She paused. "So, I want to invite you to become our resident alchemist." Xiaochen shook his head immediately. "No need. I'm used to being alone. I don't like being tied down." Luo Fei seemed to expect this. Her smile didn't fade. "Don't be so quick to refuse." She took 2 steps forward, closing the gap between them. A faint, elegant fragrance drifted into Xiaochen's nose. "Our auction house has a grade 3 alchemist. He wants to meet you personally to discuss this. And as for the compensation, I guarantee you'll be satisfied." Xiaochen went silent. A grade 3 alchemist? In this lower realm, alchemists were ranked from 1 to 9. A grade 3 master could refine pills for cultivators in the spirit platform realm. In a backwater like Wutan City, such a person was a top-tier figure. If someone like that wanted to see him, He couldn't just ignore it. He hesitated, then finally nodded. Lead the way. A flash of triumph crossed Luo Fei's eyes. She turned and walked ahead, her figure swaying gracefully beneath the silk of her dress. Xiao Chun followed behind, his eyes wandering again despite his best efforts. At the end of the corridor, Luo Fei pushed open a wooden door. Inside was a spacious guest hall. An old man sat there, looking to be in his 60s with white hair and a gray robe. Several pill bottles and a small, delicate cauldron sat on the table before him. Seeing Xiao Chun enter, the old man stood up and bowed. My name is Han Tian. I am the chief alchemist here. I have heard much about you, sir. Xiao Chun returned the bow. Master Han is too kind. They sat down while Luo Fei gracefully served tea. Old man Han studied Xiao Chun with curiosity. You've been in Wutan for 10 years, yet I've never had the chance to meet you. Seeing you today, you are indeed extraordinary. His tone turned serious. I won't beat around the bush. I've examined your pills. Your techniques are sophisticated. Honestly, more sophisticated than mine. The only thing you lack is a higher cultivation level. If your strength caught up, your alchemy would surely surpass mine. Xiao Chun didn't speak. He waited for the catch. Old man Han picked up a long wooden box from the table and opened it. Inside lay a bow. The body was deep brown, made of a material that looked like a mix of wood and bone. It was covered in fine carvings, but the weapon was ruined. A long crack ran down the arm of the bow, nearly snapping it in two. One string was broken, leaving only one barely attached. This is the finale item for our upcoming auction, Han said. A mid-grade spirit tool. Even though it's damaged, its power is still significant. It's worth a fortune. He pushed the box toward Xiao Chun. If you agree to become our chief alchemist, this bow is yours. Xiao Chun looked at the bow. He was a member of the Xiao family from the 3,000 Dao realms. After all, he had an eye for treasures. He could tell it was indeed a mid-grade spirit tool. For a guy at the 4th level of the Tongxian realm, this was a massive find. With this bow, his combat power would jump by 30%. Xiao Chun was tempted. He was just about to agree when, outside the scene, a screen popped up in front of me. Ding! The child of destiny, Xiao Chun, has triggered a life choice. Facing the recruitment of a grade 3 alchemist and the gift of a broken spirit bow, how will you choose? Option A. Accept and become the chief alchemist. Option B. Refuse and stay free. Option C. Take the bow but only agree to a temporary partnership. Option D. Refuse the bow and ask for Miss Luo Fei to spend the night with you instead. I looked at the options and a slow grin spread across my face. Option D. That was the one. I tapped it immediately. Host has selected option D. Back in the room, Xiao Chun's expression suddenly shifted. He looked at the broken bow, then at Luo Fei as she poured tea. She caught his gaze and gave him a small, polite smile. That smile set a fire off inside him. He had been suppressed for 11 years. He'd lived like a hermit in this dump for 11 years without a single woman to talk to. Now, there was a beauty right in front of him. Who cared about a bow? Who cared about a job? Neither was as good as the real thing. Xiao Chun took a deep breath and stood up. Old man Han smiled, thinking he was reaching for the bow. So, you've made up your mind? Xiao Chun shook his head. I don't want the bow. Han froze. Then what do you mean? Xiao Chun turned to Luo Fei. He scanned her from head to toe, his eyes filled with blatant, unmasked desire. Luo Fei felt the weight of his gaze, and her smile faltered. Sir. Xiao Chun grinned, showing his teeth in a way that looked downright greasy. Master Han, Miss Luo Fei, if you want me to be your alchemist, fine. But I don't want the weapon. He pointed a finger directly at Luo Fei. I want her. Spend one night with me. Just one night, and I'll agree to everything. The room went deathly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Old man Han's smile turned to stone. Luo Fei froze, her hand still holding the teapot midair. Xiao Chun thought they hadn't heard him. He repeated himself. I said, let Miss Luo Fei sleep with me for one night. Just one, and I'll. Enough. Luo Fei slammed the teapot onto the table. Tea splashed everywhere. Her face was flushed bright red, her chest heaving with rage and disappointment. I thought a man with your talent would be a person of character. I thought if we worked together, perhaps in time. She bit her lip, unable to finish the sentence. I never expected you to be such a disgusting lecher. Old man Han's face darkened instantly. He had lived a long time and seen plenty of shameless people, but never anyone quite like this. We had invited him here out of goodwill to be our chief alchemist, offering him a legendary treasure like the broken spirit bow, and he had the nerve to demand a night with our girl instead. Sir, Han said, standing up. His voice was ice-cold. It seems you have no respect for our auction house. Xiaochen opened his mouth to explain, but Han didn't give him the chance. He waved a dismissive hand. Guard, see him out. From this day forward, our auction house will not accept any pills from this man. Please, leave. 2 guards stepped into the room, flanking Xiaochen. He looked like he wanted to argue, but when he saw the pure disgust in Luo Fei's eyes and the stony expression on Old Man Han's face, he swallowed his words. He turned on his heel and stomped out. His footsteps echoed down the hallway until they faded into silence. Back in the room, Luo Fei sat down, her chest still tight with lingering rage. Han sighed softly. Luo Fei, don't take it to heart. A man like that isn't worth your time. Luo Fei shook her head, her voice dripping with disappointment. I watched him for 10 years, Han. Every time he came in, he was alone. He never spoke much, never socialized. I thought he was a man of character, someone who could be trusted with great things. She let out a bitter laugh. I was wrong. Let's not speak of him again. Old Man Han nodded and put the wooden box away. Outside the scene, I watched everything unfold with a satisfied smile. Just then, the system's voice chimed in my head. Ding. Detected that the Destiny Child Xiaochen's fate has significantly deviated. Xiaochen has lost the broken spirit bow and failed to become the chief alchemist, losing future opportunities. Returning a portion of the heavenly Dao's luck. Current luck saturation, 0.19%. Congratulations to the host for triggering a critical return. Billion-fold return. The broken spirit bow has evolved into the middle-grade spirit artifact, the Heaven and Earth Xianyuan Bow. I felt something new appear in my system space. I reached in with my consciousness and saw a bow lying there quietly. Its body was solid gold, cast from some unknown metal, with a faint light flowing across its surface. There were no cracks, and the string was perfectly intact. It radiated an ancient, overbearing aura that felt like it had survived from the primordial era. My eyes lit up. This was a heaven and earth artifact. Usually, such things had to be nurtured by the world itself, and a single world could only produce one. My Gu clan only had one of these on the surface. Now, I had my own, and it didn't need any nurturing. It was ready for war. I was about to inspect it further when I felt a shift in the air. I looked up. In the distance, the sky was changing. It turned a murky, suffocating gray, like ink had been spilled across the horizon. Starting from where the golden light had first exploded, a shadow spread rapidly in every direction. Within seconds, the entire sky was pitch black. Every Gu clan disciple in the secret realm stopped what they were doing. Why is it dark? What is that thing? I don't know, but something feels wrong. In the black sky, a crack slowly tore open. There was no sound, no flash of light, just a jagged rip in the fabric of reality, as if someone had sliced through a curtain with a knife. A figure stepped out of the rift. It was humanoid, jet black, with a metallic sheen and intricate patterns at its joints. Its eyes were 2 glowing pools of crimson light, devoid of pupils. A puppet. But why was there a puppet here? This realm only had spirit beasts. Nothing man-made was supposed to exist here. The disciples froze, but what truly terrified them was the aura coming off the thing. It was at the Tianyuan realm, and not just any level. It was far stronger than the Tier 6 beast I had just killed. Tier 7? Tier 8? Maybe even Tier 9. Nobody could tell for sure, but the pressure was suffocating. The puppet stood in the void, its red eyes scanning the ground. Then, its gaze locked onto the valley where I was floating. Its eyes flared with a murderous crimson light. It moved. It was so fast I could barely see it. Like a bolt of black lightning, it dived straight toward me. This wasn't a test or a skirmish. It was a kill shot. Deep in the void outside the realm, the 4 great emperors stood up simultaneously. The 3 ancestors looked grim. A puppet? How is there a puppet in the secret realm? It's at least Tier 9 Tianyuan realm. That's not a natural part of the trial. Someone is interfering. Gu Qingyun, however, looked different. He wasn't surprised or angry. He simply smiled and stood up slowly. Finally, I've been waiting for you. As soon as the words left his mouth, he reached out and tore the space in front of him. He didn't just open a rift, he thrust his hand inside. A massive phantom palm reached through layers of space and manifested directly inside the secret realm. An emperor's strike. The palm blotted out the sun, its fingers spreading to crush the puppet. It was so fast the puppet shouldn't have been able to react. But the puppet wasn't a mindless toy. The moment it felt the palm, its red eyes shrank. We cut off the connection to the outside world. How did they find me so fast? It muttered, its voice sounding like grinding metal. No matter. I must kill this boy. Black flames erupted across the puppet's body. It was burning its core, sacrificing all its energy for a single burst of speed. Its already insane movement doubled. It was racing to kill me before the Emperor's hand could close around it. 500 feet. 300 feet. I hung in midair, watching the black shadow scream toward me. I didn't panic. I didn't even flinch. I raised my right hand and reached into the system space, gripping the bow I had just received. The Xinyuan bow appeared in my hand. It was heavy, the true weight of a heaven and earth artifact. A normal cultivator couldn't even budge the string. Even a saint would struggle, and a great emperor might not be able to pull it to full draw. Only a true heaven and earth-level powerhouse could unlock its potential. But I was different. I possessed a trace of the Tao of strength. And strength was the one thing I had in abundance. I took a deep breath, pushing my understanding of the Tao of strength to its absolute limit. I gripped the bow and notched an invisible arrow made of pure spiritual energy. I pulled. The string didn't move. It was too heavy. I gritted my teeth. The golden flames of my Finchen immortal body erupted. The supreme bone in my chest began to glow. My Taigu immortal essence surged through my veins. I stacked all 3 powers. The string finally budged. An inch. 2 inches. It still wasn't enough. Behind me, a massive shadow flickered into existence, the Pangadharma. The world-towering giant appeared again, clearer and more solid than ever before. The giant reached out its massive hands, gripping the bow along with me. Together, we pulled. Half draw. Full draw. The Xinyuan bow was finally bent to its limit. The golden light from the bow erupted, blindingly bright. It illuminated the entire blackened sky. Spiritual energy from heaven and earth surged toward me, swirling frantically before condensing onto the bowstring. It formed a single, golden arrow. The light was piercing, like I was holding a miniature sun in my hands. The puppet was closing in. 50 yards. Its claws were already outstretched, black flames flickering at the tips of its fingers. I didn't wait any longer. I released my grip. Zip. The golden arrow vanished. It was so fast there wasn't even an afterimage. It tore through the void with a high-pitched whistle, ripping a golden gash across the dark sky. The puppet's crimson eyes widened. It tried to dodge, but it was useless. The arrow was faster than the puppet's self-combustion speed. Thud. The arrow slammed into its abdomen and tore straight through its back. Golden light exploded inside the puppet's body. Black fragments sprayed everywhere. Its momentum died instantly. It froze in midair, looking down at the massive hole in its gut. Black liquid leaked from the wound, dripping toward the ground. It wasn't dead yet. Puppets don't have vital organs. As long as the core remains intact, they keep moving. I had aimed for the stomach on purpose. The core was in the chest. If I killed it now, I'd lose the only lead I had. The puppet looked up, its red eyes staring at me, trying to move again. But a massive hand reached out from the void and snatched it. 5 fingers closed around it, crushing its resistance. The power of a great emperor wasn't something a mere puppet could fight. It struggled twice, then went still. Outside the secret realm, deep in the void, Gu Qingyun withdrew his hand. He had reached through the dimensions and pulled the puppet out. It hung suspended before him as the 3 ancestors gathered around. My father's face was calm, but his eyes were freezing. Someone actually dared to use such petty tricks in my Gu clan, he muttered. He tapped the puppet with his other hand. The black outer shell began to peel away like a snake shedding its skin. Beneath the casing, a human face appeared. It was an old man, withered and wrinkled. His eyes were shut tight, and black blood stained the corners of his mouth. He was barely clinging to life. My arrow had gutted him, and my father's grip had shattered his armor, but he was still breathing. My father didn't waste words. He placed his palm on the old man's head. Soul search. The old man's body jerked violently. His face twisted in agony. But then, my father's brow furrowed. There was a restriction. Someone had placed a seal inside the old man's soul. The moment anyone tried to read his memories, the seal would trigger and wipe everything. It was a failsafe to protect the mastermind's identity. The three ancestors looked grim. Can you break it? Gu Tianqing asked. My father let out a cold laugh. A tiny seal thinks it can stop me? A light glowed at his fingertips as he delved into the old man's mind. Deep within the consciousness, the restriction looked like a dense, glowing net wrapped around every memory. My father's power became a blade. He sliced through the net, one strand at a time. The restriction fought back, struggling against him, but against a great emperor, it was futile. A few breaths later, the seal shattered. The old man's memories flooded out like a dam breaking. My father took it all in. Back in the secret realm, the black sky began to fade. The gray clouds returned, and the rift in the sky slowly closed. Before the Gu clan disciples could process what had happened, a powerful force wrapped around them. The secret realm was closing early. One by one, figures appeared on the plaza in front of the main hall. Some were confused, others were tense, looking around for answers. What happened? Why did it end so soon? I don't know. What was that puppet thing? It looked like it was heading for the divine sun. Guyan appeared in the crowd, his face pale and his injuries still unhealed. He looked up at the sky, searching for someone. I stepped out of the void, my clothes pristine, not a speck of dust on me. The tiny golden bird was perched on my shoulder. I looked at the crowd, but didn't stop to talk. Little bird, let's go. The golden crow let out a sharp cry and took flight. Its body expanded as it soared. I leaped onto its back, and with a flap of its wings, we shot toward the sky. We reached the pocket of void where my father and the ancestors were waiting. I jumped down from the bird's back and bowed to the three elders. Greetings, ancestors. They nodded back, their expressions unusually serious. I walked over to my father. He was still holding the dying old man. I glanced at the prisoner, then looked my father in the eye. Father, who dared to move against our clan? My voice was calm, but I wanted answers. Hiding an assassin inside a Gu clan's secret realm wasn't a simple task, and the target had been clear from the start. They wanted me dead. My father didn't answer immediately. His aura was dark and turbulent, heavy enough to rival the ancestors standing beside him. He was at the peak of the great emperor realm. Even though he was young, his cultivation was just as terrifying as those who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years.